The world holds more than we are willing to see. Underwater and underground, among deserts and mountains, lie traces of civilizations not mentioned in any textbook. Their structures have survived millennia, but the meaning of their existence eludes us like a dream. These 25 secrets are like voices from the past that will not cease until humanity dares to look into the very depths of its memory. Bimini Labyrinth, Bahamas. Off the coast of the Bahamas, amid the crystal-clear blue Atlantic, lies an underwater labyrinth whose origins defy explanation by both geologists and archaeologists. It's called the Bimini Causeway, a long line of perfectly aligned stone slabs stretching nearly a kilometer underwater. Each boulder weighs hundreds of kilograms, has smooth edges, and is laid as if laid by human hands. But who and why could have created this gigantic footprint, when even modern technology can barely reproduce such precision on the seafloor? The discovery occurred in the mid-20th century, when divers exploring the coast of North Bimini Island noticed a strange straight line of rocks. At first, it was mistaken for a natural formation, but the further the explorers descended, the less credible this became. The slabs were perfectly shaped, some resembling enormous steps, others like walls. Instruments showed that the structure descended at an angle, as if leading down to a base hidden beneath layers of sand and coral. The water here is clear, the sun's rays play across the surface, and on a clear day, a pattern resembling a paved road leading toward the open ocean can be seen in the air. Scientists tried to explain everything with natural processes. Some spoke of ancient faults in the rock, others of calcite slabs carved by waves and time. But the geometry was too precise. The stones lay in 3 rows, forming something like a giant corridor. Some slabs had notches resembling joints, as if they had once been interlocked. Fragments of coral, sandstone, and limestone were found nearby, but none of this provided any answers. Even those convinced of Bimini's natural origins admit that the shape and arrangement of the slabs remain anomalous. Rumors of an underwater road quickly became legends. When archaeologists were replaced by enthusiastic researchers, speculation began that the remains of ancient Atlantis lay beneath the water. Those who saw the road with their own eyes claimed that beyond the initial rows of stones stretched others, extending westward, as if they were part of a vast complex of walls, foundations, and plazas. Some are convinced that these are not just ruins, but a point where the trade routes of a sunken civilization once converged. In the 1960s, attention to Bimini skyrocketed following the words of the renowned American prophet Edgar Cayce, who predicted that it was off the shores of Bimini that humanity would first find traces of Atlantis. His prophecy was made long before the discovery, and when divers actually stumbled upon the underwater rocks, the coincidence seemed too incredible to be accidental. The press dubbed the discovery a gateway to antiquity, and journalists wrote that the ocean might finally have revealed one of its ancient secrets. Studies have shown that the stones are covered in coral growths thousands of years old. Radiocarbon dating has yielded conflicting results, ranging from several hundred to tens of thousands of years. This has given rise to a whole new set of theories, from traces of a long-vanished civilization to the remains of an ancient coastline swallowed by the ocean after a cataclysm. Some scientists believe that entire galleries may be hidden beneath the slabs, and that the road is only the visible part of a vast structure extending beneath the seafloor. Divers report a strange clarity in the water above the road, as if it were a special glow. Some claim compasses malfunction, and cameras record strange distortions. At such moments, it seems as if the sea itself retains the memory of what was here before us. The depth around us gradually changes, sometimes increasing, sometimes decreasing, as if an invisible mass were shifting beneath the sand. Sometimes, in the stillness of the ocean, a low rumble can be heard, a sound that no instrument has been able to clearly record. Today, the Bimini Road remains one of the most enigmatic discoveries of modern times. Some see it as a natural phenomenon, others as the remains of a sunken city. It attracts explorers, divers, and dreamers from all over the world because its stony silence seems to echo a time before the continents were divided. Perhaps it's simply an illusion created by wind, water, and human belief in miracles. Or perhaps it is here, beneath layers of salt and sand, that a piece of history slumbers, hidden from us forever by the earth. Mount Roraima, Venezuela. On the border of Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana, amid clouds and tropical rain, rises a gigantic rock plateau, seemingly carved out of another world. This is Mount Roraima, one of the most ancient geological formations on the planet, believed by scientists to be billions of years old. Its summit is flat as a table, and its walls drop almost vertically, creating the impression that it's not part of the Earth, but an island frozen in the sky. Everyone who has climbed there says the same thing. It feels like you've landed on another planet, where the laws of nature operate differently. Roraima's altitude exceeds 2,800 meters, but it's not the numbers that matter. It's the feeling of absolute separation from the world. The foothills are immersed in the greenery of a tropical forest, where the air is saturated with moisture and aromas. But the higher you climb, the more everything changes. The plants become shorter, the air thicker, the sky darker. And suddenly, as if someone had cut the earth with a knife, a rocky cliff begins, descending straight into the clouds. At the summit, there are no familiar sounds, only the wind and the rustle of falling rain. It has its own unique weather, fog, rain, and occasional solar flares that make the summit seem alive. Roraima has given rise to hundreds of legends. For the Piman Indians, it is a sacred mountain, the House of the Great Spirit, a place where the gods once descended to earth. According to their legends, when humans violated divine laws, the heavens rained down rain and thunder, and the mountain itself became a stone fortress containing the secrets of the former world. Some elders say that within Roraima exist vast caves leading to underground chambers where torches left by the ancient gods still burn. Scientists see it as a unique phenomenon, a natural laboratory of evolution. The mountain summit is home to plants and animals found nowhere else on Earth. Mosses, orchids, miniature trees, and even unique species of frogs that can't jump. They appeared here before the continents separated and survived only because Roraima's summit has always been isolated from the rest of the world. This rocky island seems to have preserved a fragment of an ancient era, leaving it untouched by the perpetual rains. But there's another side to this. Since pioneers began ascending Roraima, stories of strange phenomena have multiplied. People have seen glowing orbs above the summit and heard sounds resembling the hum of enormous machines, though there are no mechanisms there. Rocks glowed in the dark, and cameras and compasses often malfunctioned. Some climbers claimed to see shadows too large to be human, flitting across the rock walls at dawn. No one could explain what this was, a trick of the light, a mirage, or something more. The view from the summit of Roraima is breathtaking. Clouds rage below, and in the distance, rivers flowing in different directions are visible. This is where the three great river systems of South America, the Amazon, the Orinoco, and the Essequibo, give birth. It's like a crossroads of worlds where heaven and earth merge into one. It's no coincidence that Roraima inspired Arthur Conan Doyle's novel, The Lost World. He wrote of a plateau where time stands still, where creatures from ancient times roam the mists. Today, Roraima remains a site of research and pilgrimage. Scientists seek answers, and travelers seek a sense of eternity. At the summit, it's impossible to feel the same. Everything here seems timeless. The raindrops sliding across the stone are the same as those that fell millions of years ago, and the wind blowing along the edge of the plateau carries echoes of long-vanished worlds. Perhaps Roraima is more than just a mountain, but an ancient symbol that past and present are never completely separated, and that somewhere, between heaven and earth, there still exists a place where history breathes of its own accord. Toshan Caves, China. In eastern China, hidden among the dense forests and hills of Anhui Province, lie underground chambers whose origins baffle researchers. They are called the Taoshan Caves, hundreds of artificially carved vaults and corridors that extend deep into the mountain. Each one has smooth walls, uniform height, and striking symmetry, as if created by a single design. However, Chinese chronicles contain no mention of the construction of such structures. Who carved these stone chambers? And why? The first caves were discovered in the late 20th century, when local residents began expanding irrigation canals. Beneath a layer of soil, they stumbled upon an entrance leading downward, and upon entering, they saw what seemed impossible. The space resembled a vast underground palace. High ceilings, perfectly polished walls, columns, steps, niches, and even ornamentation. There were no traces of soot or primitive tools. The light from their lanterns reflected off the stone as if it had been polished by modern machines. More than 30 such halls are currently known, and each one is unique. Some resemble warehouses, others temples. The largest cave reaches a height of 10 stories and covers an area comparable to a football field. The walls are covered with strange parallel grooves, perfectly cut at regular intervals. Scholars debate whether these are decorative elements or traces of a special rock-cutting technology. Even assuming they were made by hand, calculations show that carving such a volume of rock would have required thousands of people and decades of continuous labor. But not a single text from ancient China, noted for its meticulous record-keeping, has preserved even a hint of such construction. Geologists claim the Taoshan caves weren't created by nature. The rock here is dense, and water couldn't have formed such smooth lines. Instruments show that the walls are made of dressed sandstone, and the acoustics inside are near perfect. The sound of footsteps echoes softly, as if the space were designed for ceremonies or chanting. In some halls, the ceilings are decorated with symmetrical protrusions resembling ancient symbols, but no one knows what exactly they mean. Local legends circulate that the caves were built by star people who descended from the sky long before the time of the emperors. Elders say that beings who could create light without fire and communicate without words once lived here. After their disappearance, the entrances to the caves were supposedly sealed and their memory faded into myth. Others believe that Taoshan was a secret refuge for an ancient dynasty, housing artifacts and knowledge dangerous to the world. Archaeologists examining the floor discovered small fragments of pottery, charred pieces of wood, and animal bones, but none of this helped us date the structures. Radiocarbon dating revealed that the finds belonged to various eras, from antiquity to the Middle Ages. This means the caves were used repeatedly, but by whom and for what purpose remains a mystery. Some experts believe the entrances may have led deeper, to levels that have not yet been excavated. Ground-penetrating radar images do indeed show voids beneath the mountain, but access there is limited. The dense rock and the risk of collapse make exploration nearly impossible. There's a more sinister theory, that the caves were part of a gigantic underground system, created not for habitation, but for shelter, perhaps during an ancient catastrophe. Traces of water are visible on the walls of some halls, as if a torrent had once gushed here. Whether this was a flood, a landslide, or traces of inundation after a great earthquake is difficult to say. Today, only a few of the Taoshan caves are open to the public. Tourists can see only a few chambers, softly illuminated. But even this is enough to evoke a strange sense of presence. The stone seems alive, and the silence seems to listen in response. Scientists continue to take measurements, hoping to find tool marks, chemical residues, or isotopic inconsistencies that could explain how exactly this underground system was created. But so far, no hypothesis has stood the test of time. Taoshan remains a symbol of the impossible, a place where man confronts what defies logic. These caves are more than just an architectural mystery, but a reminder that Earth's history holds more than our books can explain. And perhaps, deep beneath the stone, answers still lie, waiting to change everything we think about humanity's past. Stone circles of Namibia. In the heart of southwest Africa, where endless sandy plains merge into the parched Namib Desert, hundreds of mysterious circles, visible only from above, are scattered. They are known as sand rings, or footprints of the gods. These perfect circles, ranging from a few meters to tens of meters in diameter, are perfectly outlined against the orange soil. Not a single bush grows within them, but a dense belt of greenery surrounds them, as if nature itself were emphasizing their shape. For local tribes, these circles are sacred, and for scientists, they are one of the most enduring geological and biological mysteries of recent centuries. The first description of the phenomenon appeared in the mid-20th century, when pilots flying over the desert noticed a strange pattern in the sand. Initially thought to be traces of old fire pits or military bases, satellite images revealed that the pattern spanned thousands of square kilometers and continued for hundreds of kilometers along the coast. The circles were perfectly uniform, their centers arranged in a precise grid, as if someone had intentionally marked them on the ground. Some of them disappeared over time, but new ones of the exact same shape and size appeared in their place. Biologists spent years trying to find an explanation. Some suggested termites, which gnaw away at the grassroots, creating voids. Others pointed to the chemical composition of the soil or gases escaping from deep within. but research has shown that there are no traces of insects or chemical reactions within the circles. Moreover, the soil there is no different from the surrounding soil. The only difference is that life seems to avoid these areas. Wind disperses seeds, rain falls evenly, but grass never takes root within the circles, as if some invisible force were holding it back. Local bushmen say these rings are traces of the breath of ancient spirits who guard the land. According to legend, giants once lived here, emerging from the depths of the earth and leaving their knee marks on the surface as they knelt to pray to the sky. Since then, the circles have become signs between heaven and earth, symbols of balance. In some areas, tribes do not allow dwellings to be built near the circles, believing that a force capable of taking life dwells within them. Modern instruments only add to the mystery. Magnetic sensors detect slight fluctuations in the field within the circles, as if the sand there were storing residual energy. The temperature inside and outside differs by a few degrees. Sometimes at night, thermal images show a faint glow, although there are no light sources. Geophysicists believe ancient geothermal fissures or voids may be hidden beneath the surface, but drilling has revealed nothing. The ground beneath the circles is dense, with no signs of subsidence or gas pockets. Some researchers link the Namibian phenomenon to similar formations in Australia and Saudi Arabia. Satellite maps show similarities in shape and structure, as if someone in ancient times repeated the same pattern on different continents. It is hypothesized that the circles formed at the sites of ancient meteorite impacts, where plasma altered the soil structure. However, soil analysis refuted this theory as well. No traces of melting or rare metals were found. Every year, the desert changes, but the circles remain. During the rainy season, the greenery around them becomes vibrant, and from above, they look like a gigantic canvas covered with emerald crowns. Scientists from different countries bring equipment, build temporary stations, and conduct observations, but the results always differ. For some, this is a rare example of natural balance. For others, it's a message from the depths, where the earth itself has left a mark of its breath. At night, the desert is filled with sounds, rustles, the distant roar of the wind, and sometimes brief flashes of light, like the reflection of lightning. People who spent the night near the circles reported waking up to a vibration, as if the earth were gently pulsating beneath them. Some explorers, after such expeditions, admitted they never wanted to return. Within the circles, the sense of time seemed to vanish, and the silence became unnaturally thick. The stone circles of Namibia remain one of the planet's last unsolved mysteries. Motionless, they seem to have a life of their own, appearing and disappearing according to an unknown rhythm. Who or what left these traces? Nature, ancient forces, or an unknown civilization? Humanity still knows. But those who have stood among these circles and heard the desert breathe are certain. Before them lies not mere sand, but the memory of the earth, preserving its most ancient language. The sunken city of Cuba, off the southwest coast of Cuba, where the Caribbean Sea slowly merges into the Atlantic Ocean, at a depth of approximately 700 meters, lies something that remains inexplicable. Enormous stone structures, arranged in geometrically regular lines and rectangles, create the impression of an ancient city submerged millennia ago. This area, known as the Guanayaxaca-Baibes Peninsula, was long considered geologically stable until, in the early 2000s, a group of researchers recorded anomalies on the seabed that changed our understanding of underwater archaeology. The discovery occurred by chance. A team of Canadian oceanographers led by Paulina Zalitsky was conducting sonar surveys of the seafloor in search of sunken ships. But the instruments showed something on the screen that shouldn't have been there. Smooth lines, squares, massive blocks, like carefully constructed walls. When the submersible was lowered into place, the camera transmitted images that took everyone on board's breath away. Rows of stone slabs, each several meters long, appeared in the lens, laid with such precision as if they had been laid according to a blueprint. At first, researchers thought it was an optical illusion caused by a trick of the light. But upon closer examination, it became clear that the structure stretched for kilometers, forming intersecting straight lines and shapes reminiscent of pyramids, terraces, and roads. Some blocks were up to 20 meters long. Geologists consulted on the structure were equally astonished. Natural processes could not have created such a level of symmetry. When Zalitsky presented the data to Cuban authorities, controversy ensued. Some experts claimed it was simply a cluster of basalt slabs eroded by underwater currents. But analysis of the images revealed that the stone blocks formed patterns too orderly to be random. Some of them showed traces of carved lines and indentations reminiscent of ancient symbols. A hypothesis then emerged. Perhaps these were the remains of a city that existed long before the known civilizations of Mesoamerica. Some researchers have cautiously suggested that these are the ruins of a continent submerged by a cataclysm, perhaps the same one that gave rise to the myth of Atlantis. Others have believed that they are an ancient port or sanctuary, built during an era when sea levels were much lower. Geological evidence suggests that, around 10,000 years ago, the Caribbean Sea was indeed tens of meters lower, and part of Cuba's coastline may have been dry land at that time. If so, these structures may be older than anything we know about early American cultures. In the following years, several underwater expeditions were organized, but the results were contradictory. The depth and strong currents made exploration difficult, and the images remained blurry. Some images showed clear outlines of straight walls and pyramidal shapes, while others showed only chaotic clusters of stone. Doubts grew when official agencies stopped funding the project. Nevertheless, independent researchers and enthusiasts continued diving, claiming that a man-made city indeed lay beneath the waters. One detail particularly caught their attention. A giant block with a perfect hole, reminiscent of a tunnel entrance, was discovered on the seabed. The camera penetrated several meters, but communication quickly ceased. The equipment stopped transmitting, as if a strong magnetic field were acting within. After this dive, several instruments failed completely, and their batteries died within minutes. These incidents sparked rumors of strange energy emanating from the underwater structures. The locals of Guanaxaca-Baibes have long circulated legends about a land that sank beneath the waves. Fishermen said that on particularly calm nights, a rumble like distant thunder could be heard from the depths, and that the water there glowed, as if reflecting an invisible flame. Elders say that a great city once stood here, destroyed by a wave after its inhabitants angered the sea. And although these stories are mere folklore for science, the similarities between the stories and actual findings are difficult to ignore. Archaeologists attempted to take soil and stone samples to determine their origin. The results were surprising. The composition of the blocks differed from rocks found in this part of the Caribbean. This meant the stones could have been brought from another region or formed from materials now absent from Cuba. Alternative theories claim this is evidence of an ancient civilization possessing technologies unknown to us. But there's also a more pragmatic theory. Some experts believe these structures are the remains of ancient limestone ridges, raised by tectonic movements and then submerged again. However, the question remains: why do they form such regular shapes, as if following an engineering plan? No known natural process can create intersecting lines at right angles over a distance of kilometers. Today, Cuba's sunken city remains in the shadows of mainstream science. Photographs and videos are rarely made publicly available, and most of the data from the early expeditions is kept in archives. But interest in the discovery remains undiminished. Independent researchers, divers, and documentary filmmakers come here every year, hoping to capture new footage. Forums and conferences discuss hypotheses ranging from an ancient port to traces of an antediluvian civilization that disappeared after a massive cataclysm. The Caribbean Sea is calm only at first glance. In the depths of its dark waters, where light doesn't reach the bottom, lie stone streets, terraces, and stairs where people may have once walked. Their names have been erased by time, but the stone remains. It still stands, resisting currents and pressure, as if awaiting the moment when humanity will once again remember those who lived before us. Perhaps this is not Atlantis, but something even more ancient, a vestige of a world about which Earth's memory has chosen to remain silent. Dropa stone discs, Tibet. High in the mountains of Tibet, on the border with China, where the air is thin and the peaks are covered in eternal snow, lies one of the most enigmatic discoveries of the 20th century: the Dropa stone discs. These round record-like artifacts are covered in tiny spiral inscriptions, whose meaning no one has been able to decipher. They were discovered in the middle of the last century in a remote cave in the Bayankara Ula range, where, according to legend, beings from the sky once hid. The story began in the 1930s when a group of Chinese archaeologists led by Professor Chi-Pu Te were exploring caves carved into the rock. Inside, they discovered dozens of human skeletons, but their structure was strange: small stature, elongated skulls, and thin bones, unlike those of ordinary humans. Next to the bodies lay round stone discs, about a foot in diameter, with a perfect hole in the center and lines spiraling outward. Engraved on the surface were microscopic symbols resembling ancient writing, but so small they could only be seen under magnification. Initially, scientists assumed these were primitive funerary tablets, but when they began to study the inscriptions, it became clear they were more than just ornaments. The symbols had repeating patterns, and the lines were drawn with incredible precision. Analysis revealed the unusual composition of the stone, a mixture of granite and cobalt, an alloy difficult to work even with modern tools. The age of the artifacts, determined from mineral residues, was over 10,000 years old. This completely contradicted all known data on human development in this region. Interest in the discovery only grew over the years. Professor Chi-Pu Tay published a report suggesting the symbols might contain textual information, but Chinese authorities soon classified the materials, and the archaeologist himself disappeared from public view. However, in the 1960s, information about the discs resurfaced when another researcher, Tsum Nui, claimed to have partially deciphered the inscriptions. He claimed the discs contained a story about a being who fell from the sky, whose descendants, the Dropa people, settled among the mountains, unable to return home. They were short in stature, with large heads and eyes, and taught the locals crafts, celestial navigation, and metalworking. This version caused a sensation. Newspapers around the world reported on aliens from Tibet. Skeptics, of course, declared the whole thing a fabrication, but some researchers with access to the artifacts confirmed their reality. In the 1970s, several discs found their way into private collections, where they were re-examined. Engineers from the Soviet Union, who obtained one of the samples, conducted a spectral analysis and discovered that the stone indeed contained anomalous metal inclusions. When an electric current was passed through the disc, instruments detected a weak vibrational emission, as if some kind of information source were located within. About 30 discs have survived to this day, but their origin remains unclear. Some are kept in museums in China, while others have disappeared without a trace. Official science still considers them the result of a natural process or forgeries dating back to colonial expeditions. However, archaeologists working in Bayankara Ula claim that the caves where they were found are clearly artificial. The walls are smooth, the ceilings are polished, and some chambers contain circular depressions that precisely match the diameter of the discs themselves, as if they were once part of a single mechanism. Local monks still tell legends of heavenly guests who descended in stone boats, lost their way, and remained to live among the mountains. They brought knowledge of the stars to the people and left a legacy to preserve the memory of their arrival. When the guests died, their bodies were buried in caves and stone circles were placed nearby so that their souls could return to heaven. Modern researchers have put forward dozens of hypotheses. Some believe the Dropa discs are an ancient form of astronomical calendar. Others believe they are part of an unknown device. Some believe the symbols are not written language, but rather a form of audio recording, and if a way to read them were found, ancient voices could be heard. In recent years, attempts have been made to scan the surface with a laser. Rhythmic structures resembling a digital signal have indeed been detected in certain areas, although an explanation has not yet been found. But perhaps the greatest mystery of these artifacts lies not in their age or material, but in how they change our perception of history. If even some of Dropa's inscriptions are true, it means that there may have once been peoples on Earth who possess knowledge inaccessible even today. When you look at one of the discs, covered in tiny spirals, it seems alive. Its surface seems to breathe, reflecting light with a strange bluish sheen. Scientists attribute this to the peculiarities of its composition, but those who have held them report feeling a faint warmth radiating from deep within the stone, reminiscent of a heartbeat. Perhaps this is just imagination, or perhaps it truly is. A memory of something that happened in the days when humanity was just beginning to understand that the stars above were not just lights, but roads leading home. Petroglyphs of Tassilian Ager, Algeria. In the middle of the silent, sun-baked Sahara Desert, where the sand merges with the sky, rises the ancient plateau of Tassili Najer, a place unmistakable anywhere on Earth. Hidden among the chaotic stone labyrinths and jagged cliffs are thousands of drawings, carved and painted on the walls of caves and cliffs. They depict scenes that could not have existed, enormous figures with round heads, without mouths or eyes, people in strange costumes surrounded by objects resembling flying capsules or luminous discs. These images are older than the pyramids of Egypt and even older than Sumerian cuneiform. They are estimated to be over 10,000 years old. And all this makes one wonder, who were those who left traces here and where they came from? The Tassili Niger Plateau covers an area of over 700 kilometers, rising above a sea of sand like a stone archipelago. From the air, it resembles the surface of another planet. Gloomy cliffs, narrow gorges, and precipices frozen in the scorching sun. But once you step inside these natural walls, your gaze reveals something else. Entire galleries of ancient images, executed with astonishing precision and elegance. More than 15,000 drawings have been found here, but archaeologists are certain that this is only a small fraction of what the desert conceals. When French officer Charles Bremond first reported this place in the 1930s, he was disbelieved. But 2 decades later, the renowned explorer Henri Lotte undertook a major expedition, and his discoveries shocked the scientific world. On the walls of ancient caves, he saw helmeted figures with round heads and large eyes, dressed in suits resembling spacesuits. Around them were flying objects, beams of light, figures of animals that no longer exist, and scenes seemingly depicting rituals of communication with the sky. Lotte dubbed one of the most enigmatic figures the great god Marion, a huge creature over 3 meters tall, with a rounded head, extending its arms toward people. Its eyes were 2 dark openings, and its body was covered in a pattern resembling a complex technological fabric. Scientists have attempted to explain this by citing symbolism, religious motifs, or the imagination of ancient hunters. But the more deeply they studied the petroglyphs, the more questions arose. Why, in the prehistoric era, when people lived primitively, did art with such a level of detail and depth suddenly emerge? Where did they get their knowledge of perspective, proportion, and symmetry? Why do the same shapes recur in many of the drawings? Round helmets, pipes, belts, and device-like objects. Tassili Niger seems to preserve evidence of an unknown encounter. There are images of figures with large heads touching people's foreheads, as if transmitting energy. In others, they point to the sky, where circles with rays are depicted. One fragment shows a thin column of light descending from a flying disc, and people standing beneath it, their hands raised. All of this recalls scenes that modern people would call contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. But for the ancient artist, it was part of reality. Legends of the Tuareg, a nomadic people living in these areas, confirm that godlike guests once descended to Earth, bringing with them fire, knowledge, and the ability to communicate with the sky. They taught people to count the stars, understand the wind, and predict the weather. When their mission was complete, they returned to the sky, leaving behind stone letters, messages carved into the walls so that posterity would not forget them. Tuareg elders still forbid many researchers from touching these drawings, believing that each image preserves a piece of the spirit of a bygone era. Geologists claim that the Sahara wasn't a desert when the petroglyphs were created. Rivers flowed, trees grew, and the land was green. Some images actually depict hunting scenes of giraffes, elephants, crocodiles, and buffalo, animals that have long since disappeared from these areas. This confirms that the artists lived in a completely different climate. But there are also features that can't be explained by nature. Images of people with propellers on their backs, holding antenna-like objects, and even holding what appear to be glasses or observation devices. Some researchers believe this is evidence of contact between ancient humans and a more advanced civilization. Perhaps these weren't aliens, but a vanished people who possessed knowledge that humanity later lost. There's no proof, but the facts remain. 10,000 years ago, someone left images on the rocks of the Sahara that were too precise and too complex for their time. Today, the Tassili Niger Plateau is listed as a World Heritage Site, but access is restricted. Expeditions are rare. The heat, lack of water, and dangerous sandstorms make travel nearly impossible. However, those who have been there report a strange feeling, as if the space itself is filled with a presence. In the silence, as the sun sets behind the stone peaks, the walls begin to seem alive. Silhouettes, faces, and contours of creatures that are no longer there emerge from their patterns. Scientists continue to debate, are these evidence of an ancient cult, artistic symbolism, or a message from the past that we haven't yet learned to decipher? Perhaps the answers are hidden in the lines themselves. After all, every feature of these drawings reveals a rhythm, as if the artist were following an invisible code. Modern researchers have even suggested that the arrangement of the petroglyphs on the rocks follows astronomical patterns. Some groups of images align with the positions of stars in the constellations of Orion and Sirius, as they were visible 10,000 years ago. If this is true, then what we have before us is not just art, but an ancient memory map, encoded in stone. Perhaps those who lived here were trying to leave a message not for the gods, but for their descendants, for us. And now, millennia later, we have finally found their words, but we still don't understand their meaning. As the wind sweeps across Tassili N'Ajjer, sand rustles against the walls, erasing the lines carved by those who saw the world differently. But even erased by time, these drawings continue to speak, without sound, without language, only an image. And perhaps one day humanity will learn to listen to this language again, to understand. The past is not gone. It simply waits for us to once again raise our eyes to the sky, pointed to by the ancient artists who carved their messages into the stones of the Sahara. Nan Madol, Micronesia. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, in the Western Caroline Islands, lies one of the most mysterious places on the planet, the ancient city of Nan Madol, built directly on the water. Hundreds of stone platforms and walls, constructed from enormous basalt blocks weighing tens of tons, rise amid the silence of the Pohnpei Lagoon. They form a network of canals, palaces, and temples connected by waterways. No one knows who built this city, how it managed to survive on the unstable seabed, or why it was abandoned long before the first Europeans arrived. From above, Nan Madol appears as a labyrinth of stone islands separated by canals. More than 100 artificial platforms, each several meters high, cover an area of over 100 hectares. The walls are composed of hexagonal basalt columns, perfectly fitted together, as if sculpted from a single block of stone. These columns resemble giant organ pipes, but their placement is too precise to be random. Researchers estimate that over 200,000 tons of stone were required to build the city, despite the fact that Pohnpei has no known sources of basalt. How these blocks were transported here remains a mystery. The island is surrounded by coral reefs, and even modern ships could not transport such a load. Local legends say the stones flew through the air, carried by priests who possessed words of power, capable of lifting them without the touch of a hand. According to legend, the city was built by two wizard brothers, Olosipa and Olosopa, who came from beyond the horizon. They brought with them knowledge and power, with which they erected stone sanctuaries for the worship of the stars. When their time came to an end, the brothers abandoned the island, and the city became a place where spirits and people could no longer coexist. Archaeologists attempting to explore Nan Madol have encountered the inexplicable. No written sources or clear dates have been found. The local peoples do not consider themselves the city's builders and claim that it existed long before their arrival. Some scholars believe Nan Madol was built around 1,000 years ago, but geological evidence points to a much older origin. Radiocarbon dating of artifacts found in the surrounding area suggests an age of over 2,000 years, and possibly even longer. Temple ruins, burial chambers, and the remains of walls rising tens of meters above the water have been discovered within the city. The most famous of these is Nan Dowas, a massive tomb said to be the final resting place of the rulers of the ancient Saudeleur dynasty. It is said that at night, a faint glow emanates from this tomb, and the water around it becomes still, as if the sea were submerged in respect. Divers claim that there is an underwater extension of the city, submerged staircases and arches extending into the lagoon. When the first Europeans reached Pohnpei in the 19th century, they couldn't believe their eyes. Captain James Williams, upon seeing the stone ruins, wrote in his journal that it was the Atlantis of the Pacific. German and Japanese archaeologists later visited. But even with modern equipment, they couldn't explain how such a city could have been built without iron tools, cranes, or lifting systems. Some blocks weigh over 50 tons, yet they show no signs of processing or polishing. The surface is smooth, as if fused. German engineers studying the structure of the masonry have stated that the stones possess an unusual magnetic density. Compasses in Nan Madol frequently drift, and instruments lose accuracy. Divers report hearing a faint hum, similar to breathing, within the ruins. Sometimes, a slight vibration is felt beneath their feet, as if something were moving somewhere beneath the seabed. Locals believe that a vast underwater cavity exists beneath the city, connecting Nan Madol to the ocean and guarding the ancient secrets of its creators. Some researchers hypothesize that Nan Madol was an astronomical complex. The arrangement of its canals and platforms strikingly aligns with the starry sky, in particular with Orion's belt. The city may have served not only as a capital, but also as a gigantic observatory, where priests observed the movements of the planets. Others believe that Nan Madol was part of an ancient system connecting cities across the Pacific Ocean, Pohnpei, Easter, Tonga, and Samoa. Similarities in the architecture and orientation of the buildings support this theory. Local elders warn that the city does not welcome outsiders. Those who disturbed the peace of the ruins often fell ill or died. It is said that one of the island's governors, who decided to open the ancient tombs, died a few days later under mysterious circumstances. Since then, Pohnpei residents have avoided the ruins after sunset. They believe that the souls of the Saudelaires still guard their city, and the surrounding waters preserve their breath. Today, Nan Madol is covered in moss and algae. The canals are overgrown, and only rare rays of sunlight penetrate the tropical foliage, illuminating the dark walls. Tourists can see only a fraction of the complex, but even this is enough to sense its power. A strange sense of silence reigns here, not dead, but meaningful, as if the city itself were listening in response. The stone seems alive, imbued with history, and the dark water between the platforms reflects the sky, turning the ruins into a mirror of the past. Nan Madol remains one of the Pacific Ocean's greatest mysteries. Whoever built this city possessed knowledge beyond the capabilities of their time. Perhaps these were the remnants of a civilization that existed before our understanding of history. Or perhaps they are a reminder that man is capable of creating wonders, even when the memory of them fades. When night falls on Pohnpei and the stars reflect off the still waters, it seems as if the city comes alive, remembering those who raised its walls and waiting for someone to hear its stone breath again. Underground fortress in the Himalayas. High among the icy peaks, where eternal snow reflects the cold sun and breath turns to steam, lies a secret whispered by monks for centuries. They say that deep beneath the slopes of the Himalayas lies a city built not to be seen. It is unmarked on maps and has no gates, but legends claim that beneath these mountains exists a fortress carved from the rock and closed to outsiders. It is called by various names. Some call it the House of Light, others Shambhala, but ancient texts always describe it as a place where knowledge outlasts human life. Stories of the underground halls of the Himalayas are found in Tibetan and Indian manuscripts, and almost all of them are similar. When the world plunges into darkness, a select few descend underground to preserve wisdom and await a new dawn. Some monks claim that the entrances to these underground corridors are located in inaccessible gorges where glaciers conceal natural arches. Sometimes, during thaws, caves leading downwards open, but anyone who dares to enter soon disappears without a trace. In the 20th century, rumors of a Himalayan citadel attracted the attention of expeditions. Soviet and British explorers reported strange finds: carved tunnels with perfect walls, raised stone markings, and corrosion-resistant metal fragments. One report described a gigantic domed chamber in which compasses ceased to function. The temperature inside remained constant, and the air fresh, as if supplied through hidden shafts. These accounts quickly disappeared from official publications, but copies survived in archives and private collections. Locals say there are nights in the mountains when a humming sound, like distant singing, can be heard underground. Sometimes a soft glow rises through cracks in the rocks, as if lamps were burning beneath the stone. Villages tell legends of strange travelers who appear out of nowhere, bring medicine, and then disappear into the snow. Elders say these are guardians of the underworld, ensuring that the balance is not disturbed. According to ancient texts, the fortress was built not for defense, but as a sanctuary for knowledge. Its halls served as libraries, housing scrolls made not of paper, but of ultra-thin metal plates. They were engraved with texts about the stars, the movement of the planets, and the nature of time. Some sources claim that it was here that India's first astronomical tables and legends of gods descending from the sky originated. Everything that was once understood by humanity and lost was supposedly collected there, under the stone. In the mid-20th century, Tibetan monks allowed a group of researchers into one of their monasteries. Among them was an engineer from India, who later claimed to have seen an underground entrance sealed by a glass-smooth stone slab. Carved into its surface were symbols that resembled no known alphabet. When a torch was lit over the slab, the symbols seemed to glow from within, and the air around it began to tremble. The monks declared this to be the gate to Shambhala, and warned against opening it until the world was ready for the truth. Some geologists believe that tales of underground cities in the Himalayas have some basis in fact. The region is crisscrossed by a network of natural cavities and lava channels, some of which may indeed have been expanded by humans. Satellite images in the Tibet and Nepal regions have revealed anomalous voids that coincide with locations where tradition points to entrances. However, no expedition has ever received permission to explore them. Monks claim these mountains belong not to humans, but to spirits. There is another, more mystical version. According to Tibetan cosmology, the underground fortress does not belong entirely to the physical world. It exists between layers of time and is accessible only to those who can overcome fear and illusion. It is said that there is no ordinary light within. The space is illuminated by a soft glow emanating from the walls themselves. There is no shadow and no sound, only a hum, like the breathing of the earth. People who have visited there return changed, silent, with eyes reflecting something infinite. One of the lamas, speaking with a traveler, said, "These halls weren't built by hands. They were created when the world was young. People simply discovered what already existed. Perhaps this is why the underground fortress is called open rather than man-made. Its walls seem to grow out of the rock itself, without a trace of seams or chisels, and the vaults resemble the domes of ancient temples, although no known culture could have built them." Some researchers link stories of the Himalayan fortress to the archetype of the global refuge, the idea that after each cataclysm, part of humanity retreats underground to preserve its memory, and when a new era dawns, they return, bringing knowledge of medicine, architecture, and celestial cycles. Perhaps the myth of Shambhala is not a legend, but an echo of real events that remain etched in the cultural memory of various peoples. Today, the search continues. Modern satellites record thermal anomalies and magnetic shifts in some areas of the Himalayas, but official research is limited to natural explanations. Meanwhile, each new expedition approaching the glaciers encounters something strange, instruments that begin to malfunction, and the feeling that someone is watching. The wind here doesn't sound like wind. It carries a low hum, like distant words. The Himalayan fortress remains an unreachable mystery, a place where reality merges with myth. Perhaps it's merely a reflection of the human desire for the immortality of knowledge. Or perhaps a city truly exists beneath the eternal snow, holding the answers we fear. And if humanity ever again finds itself on the brink of extinction, the path to this fortress will open to those who hear its call through the ice and silence, where the breath of the mountains merges with the breath of the ancient world. Karahan Tepe Temple, Turkey. Hidden among the barren hills and rocky plains of southeastern Turkey lies a temple that is gradually changing everything we know about the beginnings of civilization. Karahan Tepe is a place that was largely unknown to humanity until recently. It was discovered by archaeologists exploring the region where Göbekli Tepe, the oldest known sanctuary, had already been discovered. But Karahan Tepe turned out to be more than just similar. It was older, more complex, and far larger. It is not a single temple, but an entire stone complex, hidden underground for millennia. When the first excavations began, researchers expected to find the remains of a settlement, but beneath the soil they discovered dozens of stone columns leading down to underground chambers. Unlike Göbekli Tepe, where the columns stood in the open, here the entire space seems to have been carved into the hill. The corridors descend smoothly, forming a labyrinth of stone walls. Many of the columns are engraved with animal figures, snakes, foxes, boars, but they are executed with such precision, as if they were created by an artist who knew anatomy down to the smallest detail. Every line is delicately carved, every surface polished, as if the sculptures were born not from stone, but from living tissue. The most mysterious discovery awaited archaeologists in the lower chamber. There, they discovered over 200 human heads carved directly into the walls. They were all unique. Some had their eyes wide open, while others appeared closed, as if in sleep. Some heads were stretched forward, while others seemed to reach upward toward the ceiling. They all faced the same direction, toward the center of the hall, where a smooth stone pillar, unmarked, rose. Scientists speculate that it may have been an altar, but for local residents living near the excavation site, this place is sacred. They call it the House of Silence. Excavations at Karakan Tepe continue today, but even the portion that has been uncovered is astonishing in its scale. The halls are connected by narrow passages, some of which lead to vertical shafts descending tens of meters. In one of these shafts, archaeologists found a perfectly carved staircase leading to a circular hall, in the center of which stood a stone bowl 2 meters in diameter. There are no traces of fire, but faint traces of soot are visible on the walls, as if a soft light had once shone here. The complex is approximately 12,000 years old, making it older than the Egyptian pyramids, Sumerian cities, and even written language. Karakan Tepe dates back to an era when, by all known accounts, humanity had no knowledge of metal or the wheel, but someone back then possessed the knowledge to carve stone into geometrically precise shapes and create architecture that defies explanation. Some researchers suggest the temple was part of a vast network of sanctuaries, linked by lines aligned with the stars. But the question of why it was built remains unanswered. Traces of sacrifices were found at Göbekli Tepe, but none are found here. Karahan Tepe seems designed not for rituals, but for silence. Even the acoustics of the halls are designed so that the sound of a human voice dissipates instantly, turning into a muffled whisper. Instruments show strange resonant frequencies. When a low tone is heard inside the hall, the walls begin to vibrate, creating a sensation of pulsation. Perhaps this was a temple of sound, a place where ancient priests used acoustics for meditation or rituals of consciousness. Some researchers claim that Karakan Tepe is connected to the legend of the lost city of Ur, the first place where humans spoke to the stars. This theory is supported by the orientation of the columns toward specific areas of the sky. At the equinox, the sun's rays penetrate through narrow openings in the ceiling and fall precisely on the central pillar. This appears to be a carefully planned operation, as if the temple were built according to celestial maps. In the legends of the Kurdish and Arab tribes living nearby, Karahan Tepe is called the city where the stones listen. It is said that at night, when the wind passes through the underground passages, a sound resembling low singing can be heard. Sometimes it lasts for hours, gradually fading at dawn. Locals believe these are the voices of the builders, who still keep the silence. Archaeologists from Turkey and Europe debate whether Karahan Tepe was a temple, a residential complex, or something else entirely. One theory holds that the site was a school, a place where knowledge about the world, the sky, and the earth was imparted. This is supported by the unique organization of the space. Each hall seems to symbolize a specific element: water, air, fire, and stone. Perhaps, rather than a craft, students were taught here an understanding of nature. The most astonishing thing is the sensation people experience as they descend inside. Tourists admitted to restricted sections of the excavations report that the temple feels alive inside. The air is thick, the sound of footsteps is muffled, and the sense of time is lost. Some claim they can't even hear their own heartbeat inside. In such places, it seems as if the past hasn't passed away, but simply slumbers beneath the stone, awaiting those who can hear it. Karakan Tepe is more than just an archaeological find. It is a doorway to an era when man did not yet separate heaven and earth, when faith, knowledge, and stone were one. Perhaps it was here that the idea of a sanctuary was born, a place where man did not pray to the gods, but conversed with the silence that echoed the breath of the earth itself. And while scholars debate dates and purposes, the stones of Karakan Tepe remain silent, as if understanding that their secret is too great to be revealed prematurely. Pyramids of Bosnia. In the heart of the Balkans, among the hills of central Bosnia, lies a place that has divided the scientific world. For some, it's a geological anomaly. For others, it's the greatest discovery of the 21st century, one that could change the entire history of humanity. We're talking about the mysterious pyramids of the Visoko Valley, hills that, from above, appear like perfect geometric shapes, while beneath their surface lie tunnels and stone structures reminiscent of ancient structures. The story began in the 2000s when Bosnian explorer Semir Osmanagic noticed that the shape of Mount Visočica was too regular to be accidental. Its four sides formed perfect triangles, oriented almost exactly to the cardinal points. At the summit were the remains of ancient walls, and underground, Instruments recorded voids and straight corridors. Osmanagich then suggested that he was not looking at a mountain, but at a pyramid, an ancient structure built long before the Egyptian monuments. Since then, Visoko has become the scene of one of the most controversial archaeological discoveries of modern times. When the first excavations began, the researchers' enthusiasm quickly gave way to shock. Beneath the soil, rows of rectangular stone slabs were discovered, laid with a precision reminiscent of masonry. Some blocks weighed over 20 tons, their surfaces were polished, and the joints were perfectly aligned. In other places, stone staircases and ceilings were discovered leading underground. Geophysical surveys revealed that the hill indeed contains tunnels and chambers extending for many kilometers. One of these, named Ravne, is a network of corridors extending more than 2 kilometers deep. In these underground passages, the air is fresh, the humidity is stable, and the temperature remains constant even in winter. Stone blocks resembling ancient ceilings are visible along the walls. Some of them bear strange symbols and indentations reminiscent of writing or maps. Researchers have noticed that compasses and magnetometers behave strangely. The needles begin to spin, and the instruments detect faint radiation emanating from the walls. While it was believed that the underground passages were simply natural, their perfect geometry and smooth curves suggest they are artificially constructed. Osmanagich himself claims that an entire metropolis is hidden beneath Vysochika and the neighboring hills, a system of pyramids aligned with the stars. He named the main ones the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, the Pyramid of the Earth, and the Pyramid of Love. They form a geometric pattern that aligns with the arrangement of stars in the Orion constellation, just like the Egyptian pyramids of Giza. Scientists from various countries came to verify this data, and some measurements indeed confirmed the coincidence. However, official archaeology greeted the discovery with disbelief, declaring that these were merely natural formations, shaped by time. Nevertheless, evidence continues to accumulate. Ceramic blocks too large to be worked by hand were found in the tunnels. One of them, known as stone K2, weighs nearly 30 tons and is coated with an unknown compound similar in structure to concrete. Analysis revealed that this material consists of quartz, mica, and clay, components that, at a certain temperature, form a stable synthetic mass. Modern technology cannot explain how ancient craftsmen could have achieved such a result without high-temperature processing. Of particular interest was the energy field recorded at the apex of the Pyramid of the Sun. Scientists have established that a vertical electromagnetic current with a frequency of 28 kilohertz emanates from its summit. The current is stable and unaffected by weather, time of day, or solar activity. It penetrates the sky for several kilometers, as if the city were truly built as an energy station, converting the Earth's energy. Osmanagich and his team believed that the Bosnian pyramids were created to manage energy, and their builders understood the properties of resonance and vibration long before the advent of electricity. Critics point out that natural mountain structures can sometimes form such shapes. However, this leaves the origin of the smooth slabs and underground floors unexplained. Moreover, soil samples from the upper layers revealed that the surface of the hills was artificially covered with clay to prevent erosion, a technique used only in architecture. For locals, the Visoko Valley has become a source of legend. Elders say that the heart of the sun sleeps underground, and when it awakens, the earth will shine again. In recent years, stories have become more frequent about people who spend the night in the tunnels experiencing strange effects. Headaches disappear, breathing becomes easier, and fatigue vanishes. Medical teams who have visited the tunnels have indeed recorded unusual levels of negative ions, which have a beneficial effect on the body. This has given rise to a new type of tourism. Pilgrims come to Bosnia not just to see the pyramids, but to touch the energy of the earth. Official science has not yet accepted any of Osmanagich's hypotheses, but his team continues excavations, uncovering new corridors and artifacts. Each year, the boundaries of the underground system expand, and the structures discovered bear less and less resemblance to natural formations. Even the most skeptical researchers admit, if all this was created by nature, then nature acted with mathematical precision. The Bosnian pyramids remain a mystery, in which science and myth are inextricably intertwined. Perhaps they truly are the remains of an ancient civilization that vanished after a catastrophe, traces of which are preserved in legends of a great flood. Or perhaps they are merely a play of time and stone, a chance coincidence of shapes. But when you stand at the foot of Vysochika and watch the evening sun fall on its perfectly symmetrical slopes, you get the feeling you're standing before something that was never meant to survive. Before a structure erected in an era when man was still learning to be human, but already knew how to look at the sky and see in it a reflection of his own mystery. Oak Island Treasure, Canada. Off the coast of Nova Scotia, in the cold waters of the Atlantic, lies a tiny speck of land covered in pine forests and swamps. At first glance, it seems unremarkable, a quiet, deserted island where only the rustling wind and the cries of seagulls can be heard. But beneath its surface lies one of North America's darkest and most intricate mysteries, the legendary Oak Island Treasure. For over 2 centuries, people have been trying to unravel its secret, and everyone who has come close has found that the land itself seems unwilling to be disturbed. The story began in the late 18th century when 3 young men, hunting for game, stumbled upon a strange depression in the ground. Around it were traces of old ropes and the remains of wooden blocks, as if a winch had once stood there. Curiosity got the better of them, and they began digging. After just a few feet, they encountered a layer of planks, beneath which lay another, and so on every 3 meters. It seemed as if someone had dug the well in advance, carefully sealing each level. At a depth of 30 feet, work became impossible. The earth began to crumble, and water filled the shaft. Thus began the first legend of the Money Pit, a place rumored to hold untold riches. Since then, dozens of expeditions have been made to the island. Each time people tried to get deeper, something inexplicable happened. Water suddenly gushed into the shaft, even though there was no sea nearby. Pumps failed, planks crumbled, and the ground seemed to shift of its own accord. Later, it became clear. The shaft was connected to a system of underground tunnels leading to the ocean. Someone had once designed a complex water mechanism that, at the slightest attempt to penetrate, would flood everything around it. It was an engineering feat beyond the capabilities of its time. Over the centuries, dozens of theories have been put forward. Some believe the treasure belonged to the pirate William Kidd. Others that artifacts of the Knights Templar, rescued from the Inquisition, were hidden there. Still others claim the mine contained ancient manuscripts, perhaps even Shakespeare's manuscripts, or lost relics of the Temple of Jerusalem. Each theory spawned new expeditions, and each ended in failure. In the 19th century, work resumed using steam pumps. A team of engineers reached a depth of 90 feet and discovered another flooring, beneath which lay a layer of coconut fiber, a material not found in these latitudes. Beneath this was a layer of clay, then coal, and then sand. It looked as if someone had intentionally alternated the layers, creating a trap that prevented the water from escaping. Symbols carved into the wooden beams were found that remain undeciphered. One of them, translated, read, 10 feet below, 2 million pounds of gold. But when the diggers reached the 100-foot mark, the ground collapsed again, and the shaft filled with water forever. In the 20th century, corporations, engineers, and even the military joined the effort to unravel the mystery. Drilling rigs, seismic scanning, and metal detectors were used. Images revealed a vast underground cavity, and nearby, tunnels leading into the sea. Iron fragments, chains, parchment fragments, and oak pieces dating back over 400 years were found. But each time the earth was broken, the water prevailed again. The island seemed to protect its secret, turning into a living trap. Those who lived nearby claimed the island was cursed. Fog would rise over it at night, and a dull thud, like hammer blows, could be heard in the center. Fishermen said that during storms, the sea around the island darkened faster than elsewhere, and that a faint glow could sometimes be seen in the waves, as if someone were lighting fires underwater. Several explorers died in collapses or sinkings, and one diver who descended into one of the underground channels disappeared without a trace. His body was never found. Today, Oak Island has become a symbol of mysteries that science cannot solve. An entire culture of exploration has grown around it. Documentaries, studies, private foundations. But despite 21st century technology, the solution remains elusive. Perhaps there is no treasure there, and the Money Pit is an ancient drainage system built by an unknown people. But if so, why was such a complex device, extending tens of meters underground, needed? Some historians hypothesize that the mine was not a treasure trove, but a tomb. The architecture supports this. Perfect circles, elaborate water barriers, and wooden slabs, all reminiscent of ancient rites of concealment. According to legend, the key to the mystery will only emerge when the last stone falls and the water stops flowing. Then, not gold will be revealed, but knowledge, a message from the past that humanity is not yet ready to accept. Every year, new explorers arrive here. They pitch tents, drill new shafts, install pumps, and once again, just like 200 years ago, water rises from nowhere, filling everything in a matter of hours. At sunset, a thick gray fog thickens over the island, and the very air seems heavy with anticipation. No one knows what lies beneath the earth, but everyone senses that beneath the layers of stone and clay beats the heart of a mystery, too ancient and too proud to be untapped by man. The Oak Island Treasure House stands as a silent monument to human perseverance. It reminds us that there are places where wealth is measured not in gold, but in an eternal question. Who built this underground labyrinth? Why invested it with such power? And what will happen if someone finally reaches the end of the path? Perhaps the answer lies not in the treasure, but in the very attempt to understand. Some mysteries are created not to be solved, but to be searched for. Lake Natron, Tanzania. In northern Tanzania, at the foot of the Olduvai Lengai volcano, lies one of the strangest and most terrifying places on the planet. Lake Natron. Its waters sparkle with red, pink, and orange hues, but this beauty conceals a deadly danger. Temperatures here reach 60 degrees Celsius, and the chemical composition of the water makes it resemble not a lake, but a living acid. Anything that accidentally falls into Lake Natron is doomed. Birds, animals, and even insects that find themselves in its waters are covered in a hard, calcareous shell and transformed into statues, seemingly sculpted from stone. Scientists call this phenomenon alkaline mummification. The lake's water contains enormous amounts of sodium, carbonate, calcium, and minerals leached from the volcano's depths. When organic matter enters it, it instantly burns, tissues lose moisture, and the body hardens, preserving its shape down to the smallest detail. A bird touching the surface transforms within a few hours into a whitish sculpture, frozen forever. Sometimes, during low tide, dozens of these stones, figurines of animals petrified at the moment of death, wash up on the shore. They appear to be works of art, but each one is a testament to a force before which man is powerless. However, Lake Natron isn't always dead. On its surface, in places where the mineral concentration is slightly lower, live millions of tiny organisms, surviving where life cannot. They give the water its scarlet hue, reflected in the sky, and creating the impression that the lake itself is burning from within. And in this natural hell lives one of the planet's most fragile creatures, the pink flamingo. Every spring, these birds fly here to nest right on the salt islands surrounded by boiling water. For them, this is the only safe place. No animal dares set foot in these waters. From above, the lake appears alive, sometimes scarlet, sometimes almost black, depending on the sun and wind. Its surface is covered with salt crusts that break when you walk on them, filling the air with bitterness. It's impossible to breathe deeply here. The soda fumes irritate your breathing, and your skin instantly dries out. But the ancient Maasai tribes considered this very place the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead. They said the lake sees those who come to it and does not let go of those who come without pure thoughts. The elders told a legend of a fire spirit that fell from the sky and locked itself in these waters, turning them into a mirror of death. On clear days, Natron's surface truly resembles a mirror. It reflects the mountains, clouds, and sun with eerie clarity, creating the illusion of another world. Sometimes it seems as if somewhere beneath this surface there is a second land, inverted, dead, yet still breathing. In moments of silence, you can hear gas bubbles rising from the depths, followed by a soft pop, as if the lake were sighing. One of the most striking features of Lake Natron is its volatility. Every summer, when the heat peaks, some of the water evaporates, leaving behind kilometers of crystals that shimmer in the sun. But when the rains come, the lake comes alive again. It seems to breathe life and death alternately, maintaining an eternal balance. For locals, this is a sacred cycle that must not be disturbed. Scientists have long tried to understand why Natron doesn't destroy all life around it, but nature here operates by its own rules. Some species of bacteria and microscopic algae have learned to use the alkali as an energy source. They create an ecosystem resilient to extreme conditions. a unique example of survival in a seemingly impossible environment. These organisms may resemble the very beginnings of life on Earth. From a scientific perspective, Natron is a rare laboratory of natural chemistry, and from a human perspective, it's a place where one feels the limits of one's presence. Everything here seems designed to remind us of how vulnerable we are. Tourists who come to see the Lake of Death often describe a strange feeling. The longer you stand by its shore, the more palpable the silence becomes, and time seems to stand still. Legend has it that one night, a traveler, having lost his way, approached the water to drink and saw his reflection. The next morning, locals discovered a new figure near the shore, resembling a man and covered in white crystals. Since then, residents have avoided the lake, especially after sunset. They say Natron takes those who are not afraid because it does not tolerate indifference. Today, the lake remains one of the most mysterious corners of the planet. Scientists study its chemical composition, photographers search for images, and travelers seek answers, but no one leaves here the same. The waters of Lake Natron reflect not only the sky, but also everything hidden within us: fear, admiration, the thirst for immortality. And perhaps that is why it is called the mirror of the soul, a place where life and death meet so closely that it is impossible to discern where one ends and the other begins. Alkincite, Turkey. In eastern Turkey, amidst rocky ridges and desolate plains, a discovery was recently made that archaeologists are already calling one of the most massive in history. The city of Elkin is a gigantic underground settlement, capable of accommodating tens of thousands of people. It was discovered by accident when workers began repairing a water line and stumbled upon a hollow area underground. Descending, they discovered a dark passage leading into the depths. It soon became clear this was no cave or mine. It was an entire city, hidden beneath rocks and sand for millennia. The first explorers to descend into the underground found themselves in a corridor carved out of soft, volcanic tuff. The ceilings were smooth, the walls were even, and the structure was so well designed it seemed part of a modern metropolis. A ventilation system allowed air to circulate freely, and recesses resembling niches for torches ran along the sides of the passages. At a depth of 30 meters, an entire level of rooms, halls, and passages opened up. Some rooms resembled warehouses, others living quarters. And in one hall, a large well of clean water was discovered. All this indicated that the city was not a temporary shelter, but a true underground world designed for habitation. When mapping began, it was discovered that Elkin's surface area exceeded 4 million square meters, with a depth of over 300 meters. This makes it the largest known underground city on Earth. Archaeologists estimate the structure's age to be several thousand years old, but no one can pinpoint a precise date. The entrances were skillfully concealed and reinforced with stone slabs, as if its creators knew the city would be hidden from prying eyes. Inside, there's an entire civilization hidden beneath the stone. Meeting halls, warehouses, wineries, schools, even traces of water channels and pipes made of baked clay. In one of the stone rooms, beds carved into the walls were found, along with traces of ash and pottery. Everything suggests that families, perhaps for generations, lived here. Some corridors are decorated with symbols reminiscent of ancient signs, and on the walls are depictions of the sun and stars, odd for a place where light is invisible. Scientists debate who created Elkin and why. Some believe it was a refuge during times of war, when the local population hid from conquerors. Others believe the city was built long before known civilizations and served as a defense against disasters, possibly climatic or even cosmic. Geologists have discovered traces of ancient fires and ash deposits similar to those found in layers of large eruptions. Elkin may have served as a refuge during a time when natural disasters raged across Earth. However, there is another, more mystical explanation. Elders from neighboring villages claim that the underground city existed before the sun, when the earth was covered by a perpetual twilight sky. According to their legends, the first inhabitants of Elkin were not humans, but guardians of the earth, who descended beneath it to protect secret knowledge. They didn't build. They opened up the space, releasing what was already within the mountain. Monks from the local monastery told researchers that, from time to time, underground sounds are heard in the Elkin area, a hum reminiscent of low chanting that lasts for several minutes and then fades away. One expedition discovered a strange chamber deep within, with a domed ceiling covered in a black coating. In the center stood a huge stone block, reminiscent of an altar. When light was shone into it, the surface began to reflect the light in an unusual way, as if the material were absorbing and returning it in different angles. Instruments in this chamber detected a weak electromagnetic field, despite there being no energy sources nearby. This data is still controversial. Some scientists believe it is simply a reaction to the minerals in the rock, while others are convinced it represents an ancient technology lost by a civilization. But the most astonishing discovery occurred in 2023, when ground-penetrating radar revealed new levels beneath the city. It turned out that Elkin continues downward, and no one knows where it ends. Some cavities, according to research, are below sea level and possibly connected to underground water sources. Archaeologists believe they may contain chambers intended for the storage of something once of great significance, perhaps scrolls, artifacts, or relics hidden from the disaster. Locals treat this place with both reverence and fear. They say Elkin is alive and must not be disturbed without reason. Turks from nearby settlements claim that at night, a faint glow, like fog, sometimes appears over the hill beneath which the city is hidden, and the air becomes thick and vibrant. Shepherds say animals avoid the place, as if they sense something underground. Elkin remains one of the most impressive finds of modern times. Its scale, structure, and technological sophistication defy any understanding of the ancient world. Who built it remains unknown. But one thing is clear: whoever created this city understood time differently than we do. They didn't build for the present, they built for the future, leaving a message underground that no one can yet decipher. And when you stand at the narrow entrance leading into the darkness, you feel the breath of the earth, deep, slow, like the pulse of something living. The stone seems to hold the memory of voices long since lost, and of a world that refused to be forgotten. Elkin is more than just an underground city. It's a time capsule, a reminder that the past isn't always beneath our feet. Sometimes it breathes directly from the depths, waiting for us to learn to hear again. Mokula Rocks, Hawaii. Hidden deep in the tropical jungles of Hawaii, on one of the archipelago's remote islands, lies a discovery few even locals know about. The Mokula stones are gigantic basalt walls and slabs arranged in terraces, steps, and rectangular platforms. They are covered in moss and tree roots, but upon closer inspection, it's easy to see that this is no natural accumulation. The stones are worked and fitted together, and their geometry is too precise to be random. And all this lies in the wilderness, where no trace of human settlement remains. When the first explorers reached these ruins, they thought they had found the remains of ancient Polynesian temples. But measurements quickly revealed that the structures date back far beyond the time of the first Hawaiian tribes. The stone walls extend several meters underground, and some blocks weigh over 30 tons. They are laid out in a shape reminiscent of a gigantic rectangular complex, as if part of an ancient fortress or palace. No chronicle or oral tradition mentions a people who could have built anything similar. Local elders told a legend about people who came from the sea, tall, fair-skinned creatures who could lift stones with a single glance. They called them Kamano, guardians of the balance. According to legend, they came to the island when the earth trembled and the sea boiled, and then disappeared, leaving behind stairways of the gods leading to nowhere. These stairways are the Mokula stone steps, which today are lost among the vines and trees. Archaeologists attempted to date the structure using soil layers and roots, but the results were contradictory. The upper layers dated to the first millennium CE, while the lower layers indicated an age of over 10,000 years. This undermined the conventional chronology of the region. The hypothesis that the walls were built by volcanic activity was rejected. The basalt here is worked, polished, and laid in a checkerboard pattern, something not found in nature. During one expedition, researchers noticed a strange feature. At sunrise, the shadow of the main wall fell directly on a rock ledge, then, after a few minutes, disappeared. Repeated observation confirmed this was no coincidence. The wall's angle and position corresponded to the astronomical direction of sunrise on the summer solstice. This suggests that the builders of Mokula not only understood geometry, but also had knowledge of astronomy. Soon after this discovery, mysterious events began. Several expedition members fell ill, and one suffered severe burns on his hands, despite having had no contact with fire or chemicals. Locals said that stones don't like to be disturbed. According to their beliefs, the Mokula ruins are guarded by spirits, and any interference provokes their wrath. On the third day, the archaeologists discovered that their compasses had stopped working and their GPS devices were showing impossible coordinates. The project was soon abandoned, and the area was declared a protected area. Little is known about Maukala today. Official reports mention unidentified stone structures, but provide no further details. However, satellite images show that straight lines and symmetrical shapes are indeed hidden beneath the vegetation. Scientists who have studied geomagnetic data claim that anomalies, weak pulses repeating at regular intervals, are observed in the area of the ruins. It's possible that underground cavities or metallic inclusions are present, creating the pulsating effect. It is believed that Maukala is part of an ancient complex associated with the legend of the sunken land of Mu, the precursor of Atlantis. Ancient Polynesian myths speak of a great archipelago that sank after a rain of fire. The remaining islands became home to the survivors, and the ruins of Maukala were their final refuge. Some researchers believe the architectural style of the ruins is similar to that of Nan Madol and other megalithic complexes in the Pacific Ocean, which may indicate the existence of a single civilization. When the sun dips below the horizon, the jungle around Maukala becomes eerily quiet. The birds fall silent, and the air seems thicker. The stone slabs cast shadows that move more slowly than expected. People who have been here at night report hearing a hum like distant drums and seeing a faint glow, as if something were breathing underground. Elders believe this is the memory of stone, the call of ancient builders whose names have long been erased by time. Today, Maukala is closed to tourists, but researchers occasionally come here, hoping to uncover one of the last unsolved mysteries of the ocean world. They take measurements and soil samples, but each time they return with the feeling that they have touched not just ancient stones, but something living. The Maukala stones recall a time when man and the land were perhaps closer than they are today, when structures were built not for power or faith, but for harmony with the sky and the sea. Perhaps that is why they still stand, untouched by storms and time. Their silence speaks louder than words, and anyone who has ever seen them by moonlight understands. These are not mere ruins. They are the remnants of a memory of a world where man knew how to speak to stone. Sunken towers of Malta. In the Mediterranean Sea, around Malta, amidst clear azure waters and jagged cliffs, lies something that has been raising debate among archaeologists and oceanographers for decades. Underwater, at a depth of about 30 meters, gigantic circular foundations, terraces, and straight walls extending into the sand are visible. Their shape is reminiscent of the ancient temples of Malta, megalithic structures built long before the pyramids of Egypt. But unlike the land-based temples, these lie underwater, where human structures could not have existed, unless the sea level was once significantly lower. Malta has long been considered a land of mystery. Some of the world's most ancient stone temples, Gantija, Menajdra, and Hagar Sim, are preserved on its territory. They are over 5,000 years old, and their purpose remains unclear. But underwater finds indicate that they are only part of a much larger complex, buried beneath the waves. In the early 2000s, divers exploring the coast between the islands of Malta and Gozo noticed smooth lines and platforms on the seabed. Upon closer inspection, it turned out that these were not natural formations. The stones formed arcs and semicircles, resembling the walls of an ancient sanctuary. One of the most impressive sites is the area near the town of Sliema. Here, two circular structures, each about 20 meters in diameter, lie submerged beneath the water. Their walls are composed of enormous limestone blocks, and at the center of each circle is a stone basin. These structures are almost exact replicas of temples on dry land, only submerged beneath the sea. Radiocarbon dating of the corals growing on the blocks has revealed an age of over 7,000 years, which coincides with the end of the last ice age, when sea levels were indeed lower. If this is true, it means the builders of these temples lived at a time when the Mediterranean coastline looked different, and today's sea depths were flat. But who were these builders? Science doesn't know. Local legends tell of star people who descended from the heavens and taught the ancient inhabitants of Malta how to build temples of light. According to legend, they built towers facing the sky, where their home was reflected. When the sea rose, the temples sank beneath the waves, but the spirit of the builders remained in the stone. Divers exploring the sunken ruins report strange sensations. Silence reigns around the towers, and the water seems denser. Sometimes instruments detect a weak electrical current, as if energy still lingers within the stones. One underwater archaeologist described how, as he approached the wall, the compass needle began to spin, and the light from his flashlight seemed to dim. The stones are covered in a thick layer of limestone, but beneath it, smooth lines are visible, the traces of ancient carving executed with a precision unachievable with primitive tools. Some researchers believe that the underwater temples of Malta are the remains of a pre-flood civilization that existed long before the known cultures of the Mediterranean. It is possible that this is where the spread of megalithic architecture, which we later see in Europe and the Middle East, began. This theory is supported by the striking similarity between the layout of Maltese temples and buildings in the Balearic Islands, Sardinia, and even Britain. It is as if the ancient builders understood not only geometry, but also the sacred connection between the stars and the earth. Interestingly, almost all of Malta's sunken structures are oriented toward the same direction. Southeast, the direction the sun rose on the summer solstice in ancient times. This coincidence seems too precise to be coincidental. Perhaps the temples were used for astronomical observations or rituals related to the movements of celestial bodies. A massive slab with a carved circle and holes along the edge was discovered at the bottom of one of the towers, like a primitive calendar, through which the sun's rays would pass on specific days of the year. But the very idea that these structures could have been built by humans before the sea rose is met with skepticism from mainstream science. This would mean that 8,000 to 9,000 years ago, craftsmen capable of constructing stone complexes with architectural precision existed. Therefore, research is proceeding slowly. The government restricts underwater exploration, citing ecosystem protection, but local divers have long rumored that the issue is more than just environmental. In the evenings, when the sun sets into the sea, coastal residents say they can sometimes see a strange shimmer in the water, as if light were filtering through the water from the depths. Fishermen believe this is the reflection of underwater temples that remember the light of the stars. Sometimes at night, low vibrations are heard, like distant bells ringing. Scientists attribute this to the movement of underwater currents, but elders are certain it is the breathing of ancient towers that are still alive. Every year, the sea continues to slowly erode the limestone, revealing new fragments of the stone walls. Perhaps one day we will see the entire complex, and if these temples were indeed built by humans, it will change our understanding of the beginnings of civilization. Perhaps Malta is the very place where humanity's memory of the first builders began, those who gazed at the sun and created their towers to connect heaven and earth. Today, Malta's underwater towers sleep in silence, covered in sand and seaweed. But every ray of light penetrating the water seems to bring their walls to life, a reminder that nothing disappears forever. Even cities that have sunk beneath the waves continue to exist, a reflection of a time when man still remembered that stone could speak and the sea could hold secrets. Socotra Island, Yemen. In the Gulf of Aden, off the coast of Yemen, amid desert winds and salty waters, lies an island often called the strangest place on earth. Socotra seems carved from another world. Here the sky seems closer, the air is thick and sweet, and the plants look as if they grew on another planet. Separated from the mainland for millions of years, life here has taken its own path, unlike anything known to man. Scientists call it a biological miracle, and locals call it God's living dream. But for those who have seen Socotra with their own eyes, it is more than just an island, but a mystery locked between sky and sea. As the ship approaches the shore, the land seems covered with inverted umbrellas. These are dragon's blood trees, ancient plants with thick trunks and crowns resembling open cups. Their resin, bright red like blood, has been considered sacred for centuries. It was used to heal wounds, create paints, and even embalm bodies. But the strangest thing about these trees is not their shape, but the feeling that they are alive in a human sense. Elders say that at night their crowns stir, as if listening to the wind, and whisper to each other in the ancient language of the earth. Socotra is unique. More than 300 species of plants and animals are found nowhere else on the planet. Cucumber trees with soft trunks, flowers resembling human faces, and iridescent lizards that change color, not from fear, but from emotion, grow here. Scientists call this island the island of evolution, but even among them, there are those who admit that the explanations don't add up. The flora and fauna are too distinct from those of neighboring regions, and the adaptation to the hot, dry climate is too complex. Some biologists suggest that the island harbors a unique form of biochemistry, preserved from times before the emergence of modern species. The locals, descendants of ancient tribes, live almost as they did thousands of years ago. Their legends preserve the memory of sky people, who came to the island when the world was still young. They taught how to build wind-resistant stone houses and left behind sanctuaries built from enormous slabs without mortar. These temples still stand, on mountaintops and along the shores, where waves crash against the stone like walls. Many of the slabs are carved with symbols resembling writing, but no scholar has been able to decipher them. The people of Socotra say this is the language of the wind, and only those born on the island can hear it. Sometimes, in the silence of the mountains, especially at night, you can hear the wind blowing through the crevices, singing with a low hum like a human voice. The monks who live in the caves claim this is the voice of the earth, heard only on special days, when the tides align with the movements of the stars. Indeed, astronomical observations show that the island's shape and the arrangement of its mountain ranges form a figure that aligns with an ancient map of the constellation Draco. Is this a coincidence or a reminder that people once built their dwellings along the celestial lines? The caves of Socotra are a mystery unto themselves. Some of them extend for kilometers. Inside are stalactites resembling living tissue and stone columns that, when struck, produce sounds reminiscent of chords. In one cave, called Hook, traces of black pigment are visible on the walls, possibly ancient drawings, but no one has been able to properly study them. The air inside causes a strange dizziness, devices quickly fail, and batteries die within minutes. Tourists who have visited have reported strange dreams, as if they saw the island from above, illuminated by a blue light, with a beam of light emanating from the center, reaching into the sky. Scientists studying Socotra's magnetic field discovered an anomaly. Its vector is slightly deflected, creating a reality shift effect. Instruments occasionally detect short bursts of electromagnetic activity unrelated to thunderstorms or solar storms. This place seems to operate by its own laws of physics, as if the boundary between worlds is thinner here. Some expeditions even compared clocks. Time ran slightly slower inside the caves than on the surface. The difference is small, fractions of a second, but enough to call into question the laws we consider immutable. But perhaps Socotra's greatest secret is its silence. At night, the sky above the island seems endless, the stars hanging so low you could almost reach out and touch them. Not a single city, not a single ship disturbs this darkness. Everything here is motionless, and in this stillness, one can sense the breath of antiquity. Those who have lived on the island all their lives are convinced that Socotra is more than just land. It is a guardian between worlds, a place where the earth listens to the sky. They believe that when humanity forgets where it came from, the island will remind them. Legend has it that a black stone temple once stood on Socotra, but it vanished overnight. The sea around it foamed, and the sky turned red, like the resin of the dragon tree. People said the gods took the temple because it was built not for light, but for power. Since then, the island has avoided high-profile events. There are no wars, no cities, no rush. Everything lives at its own pace, just as it did 1,000 years ago. Today, Socotra remains a destination reached only by the most determined. There are no major roads, electricity, or hotels here. Only wind, stone, and the smell of resin. But everyone who sets foot on this land feels as if they have found themselves on the border between the past and eternity. Standing among trees pouring red sap and watching the sunset paint the sky in the same colors, it seems as if time has stood still. Socotra is more than just an island. It is a reminder that the earth still holds its secrets, and perhaps it is here, among the silent rocks and ancient trees, that it whispers to us of its origins, quietly, through the sound of the wind, through the breath of the sea, through the color of the blood flowing from the hearts of its most ancient living creatures. Ice mummies of Altai. High in the Altai Mountains, where snow-capped peaks touch the sky and the wind sings as if carrying the voices of the past, burials have been discovered that have changed scientists' understanding of ancient humans. Amidst the permafrost, beneath layers of ice and earth, archaeologists discovered bodies so perfectly preserved as if they had slept the night before. Their skin, hair, and even clothing were untouched by time. But what was most astonishing was something else. The bodies were covered in tattoos, intricate and graceful, depicting animals that no longer exist. These figures seemed symbolic, but no one could understand their meaning or purpose. The discovery occurred at the end of the 20th century on the Ukok Plateau, a place where the climate is so harsh that even grass grows slowly. Archaeologists were searching for traces of ancient burial mounds, but beneath one of them, they found not just a burial, but an entire ice sarcophagus. When it was opened, the air was filled with the scent of resin and rotten wood, as if the breath of millennia had been released from within. Inside lay the body of a woman, wrapped in patterned wool. On her shoulders and arms were tattoos of griffins, deer, and mythical creatures. Her face was calm, her eyes closed, her lips slightly parted. She seemed asleep. She was later dubbed the Princess of Ukok, although no one knows for sure who she was, a priestess, a queen, or a keeper of secret knowledge. The find was over 2,500 years old, but thanks to the permafrost, the body was better preserved than Egyptian mummies. Nearby were found vessels containing herbs, chunks of ice soaked in the scent of oil, and the skin of a horse buried with its owner. Everything spoke of a ritual performed with precision and respect, as if people believed she was departing not to death, but to another state, a place where her spirit would continue to guard the nation. Scientists examining the remains discovered that the woman's skin had been treated with a special compound that prevented decomposition. Its formula has yet to be reproduced. The tattoos were made with an ink whose composition defies analysis. Under a microscope, the pigment appeared like metal particles, although chemically it consisted of carbon and unknown minerals. When the image was illuminated with infrared light, the lines began to glow with a soft blue luminescence. No one has been able to explain this effect. But it wasn't just the mummy itself that became a mystery. When her body was transported from the mountains to the laboratory, the residents of Altai began to protest. They claimed that the peace of the Earth's guardian had been disturbed and that her spirit should not leave the place where she was buried. Afterward, the region was truly shaken by unusual events. A powerful earthquake, the likes of which hadn't occurred there for decades, and sudden storms began to rage on the plateau. Elders said that the mountain had awakened, demanding the return of what belonged to her. Several years later, the government decided to return the mummy to Altai, where it is now kept in a special museum established near its native plateau. Besides the princess, several other burials were found in the same area. Men, women, warriors, shamans, all with the same astonishing tattoos, complex designs, and facial expressions devoid of fear or pain. This led researchers to speculate that these were not just burials, but a special caste of people, keepers of rituals or knowledge related to nature and the cosmos. Experts believe the tattoos on their bodies could have been a kind of map. Some show lines aligning with the positions of constellations, while others depict animals associated with Siberian mythology. But if it is a map, where does it lead, and why were the designs applied to the body? Perhaps the ancients believed that the skin was the boundary between worlds, and the designs paved the way for the soul after death. Interestingly, objects uncommon in this region were found along with the mummies: silk fabrics, bronze and jade jewelry, crafted with meticulous precision. This means that the people of Altai were part of a vast cultural network spanning all of Asia. Yet, their art and funerary rituals are unique. Nothing comparable has been found in either China or Persia. Scientists still cannot explain how the bodies did not decompose at temperatures above freezing, despite no traces of embalming being found. Perhaps the people of Ukok possessed knowledge about the interactions of herbs, oils, and minerals lost over time. It is believed that they used cold not simply as a natural factor, but as a ritual element, as if they knew how to preserve life in peace. Today, the discovery site is closed to tourists, but pilgrims occasionally visit. They leave flowers, light candles, and pray, regardless of religion. It is said that on clear nights, a strange glow resembling the northern lights can be seen above the burial mounds, although this is geographically impossible. Locals believe these are guardian spirits, watching over the world while we still search for what they once knew. The ice mummies of Altai remind us that humans have always sought to preserve not the body, but memory, the memory that connects the past and eternity. These faces, frozen in snowy stillness, seem to continue to gaze through time, preserving the secret of a life in which death was not the end, but the beginning of the journey home. Megaliths of Karnak, France. In western France, in the quiet seaside village of Carnac, lies one of Europe's most mysterious places. Here, amid the green meadows and windswept plains of Brittany, stands an army of stones, thousands of granite monoliths, stretching in precise lines for kilometers. These stones, arranged in perfect rows, seem to obey an invisible law. They are over 7,000 years old, yet no one knows why they were erected or who could have carried out such a grandiose construction before metal was invented. When you first see Karnak, it seems as if the earth is frozen in motion. Stones, like frozen guardians, stretch toward the horizon, each with its own location, its own angle, its own height. The largest reach 4 meters, while the smallest are barely above the knee. They are arranged in 11 parallel rows, and when viewed from above, the pattern resembles waves or the breath of the earth. Legend has it that this was once an army of Roman soldiers turned to stone by Saint Cornelius, but the stones stood here long before Rome. Scientists studying Karnak have noted that the placement of the megaliths is no accident. They are aligned with solar and lunar cycles and also mark important astronomical points, the locations of sunrise on the summer solstice and the moon during rare eclipses. Some researchers believe that Karnak was an ancient observatory, built to track the movements of celestial bodies. But simple astronomy doesn't explain the scale. The installation of more than 3,000 stones required a knowledge of geometry, force, balance, and planning that was not ascribed to the people of that time. Instruments revealed that many megaliths were aligned to within a centimeter, and the lines formed by their rows intersected at angles that mirrored the Earth's magnetic field. Magnetic measurements revealed that some stones were emitting weak electromagnetic vibrations. This led to a new hypothesis. Karnak may have been an ancient energy complex where the stones were used as resonators. Their material, granite rich in quartz, is capable of amplifying vibrations. Perhaps the builders knew how to channel the Earth's energy, transforming these fields into a kind of natural generator. Locals have long considered Karnak a place of power. Even in the Middle Ages, women wishing to conceive would come here and lie on the stones, believing they preserved the breath of life. Fishermen would leave offerings here before setting out to sea, lest a storm swallow their boats. Even today, despite the fences and tourists, the elders of Brittany walk around Karnak with reverence, not daring to touch the stone without permission. During one expedition, archaeologists discovered stone pits beneath the earth, perfect depressions, as if designed for the installation of new monoliths. This meant that the complex had once been even larger, possibly forming a gigantic network, stretching all the way to the ocean. Radiocarbon dating revealed that construction continued for centuries, generation after generation, as if the descendants of ancient masters continued the work of their ancestors, unsure of the precise purpose but following the ancient plan. The strangest discovery came while examining the soil between the rows. Traces of molten sand were found beneath the stones, as if intense heat had been exerted there. Scientists tried to explain this by lightning strikes, but the distribution of the molten sand was too uniform. A bold idea emerged. Perhaps Karnak was used to harness energy, solar, acoustic, or even terrestrial. The granite pillars could have been antennas connecting heaven and earth. At night, Karnak has an almost mystical quality. The moon illuminates the stones, making them seem to breathe. The wind blows through the rows, producing a low hum, like a choir. Tourists report sometimes hearing whispers, as if words in an unknown language were being spoken from somewhere deep within. Local legends say that once every century, the stones come to life, slowly shifting their position to look at a new sky. In the 1970s, a French engineer decided to test this. He compared photographs of Karnak, taken a century after the first expeditions, and discovered that several megaliths had indeed shifted slightly. This movement was so slight that it could have been attributed to erosion, but the direction was consistent. All the stones had shifted eastward. This may or may not be a coincidence. Today, Karnak is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, protected and studied, but the mystery of its purpose remains elusive. Some see it as a place of worship, others as a tool for observing the sky, and still others as a vestige of ancient technologies long forgotten by humanity. And yet, standing among these rows, you sense a strange presence. The wind thickens, the sounds become muffled, and your heart begins to beat in the same rhythm that perhaps once resonated with the earth itself. Karnak is more than just an archaeological site. It's a code left behind by an era when humans still heard the voice of the planet. And perhaps one day, when science learns to listen not with instruments but with attention, these stones will speak, not with words but with vibrations, that ancient language in which the world was first created. Underground Temple of Varanasi, India. On the banks of the sacred Ganges River, in the heart of the ancient city of Varanasi, where funeral pyres burn around the clock and the air is filled with the scent of sandalwood and prayers, lies a secret that almost no one knows about. Beneath the narrow streets, temples, and homes, where millions of people come to seek purification, stretches a network of underground corridors and halls carved from solid stone. These passages lead so deep that even modern research has been unable to determine their end. Locals call this place the womb of Shiva, believing that it is here that the heart of the ancient faith lies, hidden from time and humanity. Legends of underground Varanasi have been passed down from generation to generation. It was said that a city existed underground, mirroring the one above, a shadow of the sacred world, where temples continued to stand even as everything above collapsed. When archaeologists first decided to verify these rumors, they discovered a hole beneath one of the old temples leading downward. Beyond it, a passageway covered in stone patterns opened up, and a silence tinged with ancient power. The walls of the corridors were covered with reliefs depicting scenes not found in any Hindu epic. People with animal heads, multi-armed creatures, women carrying vessels of light, and strange symbols resembling star maps. Some of the drawings were executed using a technique unheard of for their time. The lines were perfectly straight, as if etched by a laser. At a depth of 20 meters, the researchers found stone steps leading to a circular hall, about 30 meters in diameter. In the center stood a huge lingam, a symbol of the god Shiva, not carved but seemingly growing from the rock itself. When light was shone on it, the surface began to shimmer, reflecting shades of blue and silver. It seemed as if energy was flowing within the stone. Instruments detected a weak electromagnetic field and a change in the surrounding temperature. The air grew warmer, and a subtle humming sound appeared in their ears. People nearby described a feeling as if time slowed down around them, and their thoughts became transparent. Local priests, upon learning of the excavations, demanded they be stopped. They claimed the underground temple was not a place for research, but a sanctuary where a power resided, linking the world of the living and the world of the ancestors. But the archaeologists continued their work and soon discovered another passage leading deeper. It led to a vault beneath which the sound of running water could be heard, and indeed, a few meters further on, they stumbled upon an underground stream, a clear, warm river flowing directly beneath Varanasi. The ancient texts of the Skanda Purana mentioned a secret river beneath the Ganges that connects the human world with the abode of the gods. Scientists initially dismissed this as a metaphor, but now they were faced with its physical embodiment. The water turned out to be unusually pure and contained high levels of silver and minerals that inhibit bacterial growth. Perhaps this is why it remains unspoiled for centuries. When the expedition attempted to delve deeper, the vaults began to tremble and part of the passage collapsed. After this, exploration was halted. However, those who managed to descend deeper reported strange sounds, as if someone was singing. The singing wasn't human, but it contained a harmony reminiscent of sacred mantras. One of the engineers claimed the walls vibrated in time with the sounds, as if the stones themselves were part of a vast musical instrument. Later, studying the resonant properties of the underground halls, physicists established that the architecture was indeed built on the principle of sound symmetry. Every column, every curve amplified the sound, transforming the space into an acoustic system. Perhaps the temple was created not only for worship, but also to control vibrations, what the ancients called nada, the sound from which all things are born. Legend has it that underground Varanasi was built not by humans, but by Nagars, creatures who emerged from beneath the earth when the world was still young. They taught the first priests the art of sound and light, then retreated back into the depths, leaving their temples behind. Every time the Ganges River overflows and floods part of the city, people say the underground temple breathes, reminding them of its presence. Modern satellite images have revealed anomalies beneath the surface of Varanasi, lines and shapes that don't align with the city's layout. Scientists aren't ruling out the possibility that a gigantic network of chambers actually exists underground. However, excavations there are impossible due to the high density of buildings and the risk of destroying the sacred temples. Therefore, the mystery of underground Varanasi remains unsolved. At night, when the flames of the bonfires reflect on the water and the mantras merge with the splash of the Ganges, it seems as if the city inhabits two worlds simultaneously. One above, noisy and full of life, the other below, motionless, eternal. And perhaps this is what makes Varanasi a place where the boundaries between life and death, sound and silence, man and God dissolve in a single breath. Underground, in the darkness, the ancient resonance that once gave birth to everything we call the world continues to resound. Nica Crystal Caves, Mexico. Deep underground in northern Mexico, beneath the Nica mine, where workers extract silver and lead, lies a place defying description. When the caves were first opened, those who entered said they felt they had entered another world, a world where everything was made not of stone, but of light. Gigantic selenite crystals grow from the walls, floor, and ceiling, transparent, pure, and shining, like frozen lightning. Some reach lengths of 10 meters and weigh over 50 tons. This is one of the most extraordinary natural wonders on the planet, but its origin and properties remain unclear. The cave was discovered by chance in 2000, when workers were digging a new tunnel. As the drill penetrated the limestone, a stream of hot, steam-laden air gushed out. The temperature inside exceeded 60 degrees, and the humidity reached almost 100%. People could only remain there for 10 minutes, or they would suffocate. But even that time was enough to see something that left everyone speechless. Enormous crystals crisscrossed the space, reflecting the light of the lanterns like mirrors. It was as if the earth itself had grown a temple of light within itself. Scientists who later descended with equipment determined that the cave had been underwater for millions of years. The water, saturated with minerals and sulfur, gradually cooled, creating ideal conditions for crystal growth. Each crystal grew slowly, atom by atom, until it became a gigantic structure. But why here, and why such a large structure? There's no answer. There's no other place on Earth with such conditions. The temperature in the cave remains nearly lethal to humans. Even with cooling suits, the researchers could work for no more than an hour. Inside, they heard a strange sound, a quiet crackling as if the crystals were breathing. Instruments detected weak electromagnetic radiation emanating from some of the formations. Scientists hypothesized that the minerals accumulate energy and, when the temperature changes, partially release it, creating electrical impulses. But other rumors circulated among the researchers that the crystals remember sound, vibrations, and even human presence. Microscopic air and liquid bubbles, estimated to be over 50,000 years old, were found on the cave walls. Inside them were microbes, the oldest ever discovered on the planet. When scientists attempted to extract them and awaken them, some of the organisms actually came to life. This became a scientific sensation, but also a warning. Perhaps the cave holds not only beauty, but also ancient life forms that humans are best off avoiding. One of the researchers, Dr. Penelope Boston, later reported that while inside, she felt a sense of an inexplicable presence, as if she were being watched. The light from the lanterns refracted in the crystals, creating the illusion of moving shadows. At one point, she heard a deep vibrating sound, similar to a human voice, but there was no one around. Later, recordings from the device did indeed record a low-frequency resonance, the source of which could never be determined. Nica Cave remains closed to the public. After pumping operations ceased, water began to fill it again. Perhaps in a few decades, the cave will be underwater again, and humanity will lose access to it. But those who have seen it are certain. It is more than just a geological formation. It is a living organism of the earth, breathing slowly, like the planet's heart. Interestingly, Mexican legends contain a myth about a house of crystals, where the light of the earth dwells. This light was believed to have the power to purify souls and restore the world's memories. The elders of the Tarahumara tribe said that the luminous bones were a gift from the gods, and that if a person could see them without fear, they would understand the language of the earth. When Nica was discovered, these legends were revived. There were too many similarities, even the location of the cave beneath a hill that in ancient times was called the place where light breathes. Scientists still debate whether Nica is a natural phenomenon or the result of ancient intervention. Some crystal structures are aligned at angles, forming perfect hexagonal shapes, as if following some design rather than the chaos of nature. There's a theory that the crystal growth could have been directed, perhaps by electromagnetic fields. While this sounds like science fiction, the fact remains. Nature exhibited intelligence here, as if it knew what it was doing. Naika amazes with its blend of fragility and eternity. The heat within is enough to kill a human, yet the crystals survive in this heat, unbroken, preserving the memory of millennia. This is a place where the boundaries between the living and the non-living are erased, and if you gaze long enough at the transparent, gigantic formations, it seems as if they truly glow from within, not reflecting light, but radiating it, as if the ancient, silent, yet still living heart of the earth beats within these crystals. Tassert Plateau, Libya. In the heart of the Sahara Desert, where there is neither water nor vegetation, where the wind polishes the rocks to a shine for years, lies a place that seems like a fragment of another planet. The Tassert Plateau is a silent sea of stone, stretching for tens of kilometers, where the landscape suddenly breaks into cliffs covered with thousands of ancient drawings. Here, among the scorched earth and hills resembling frozen waves, one of the most enigmatic testaments to the distant past has been preserved. Depictions of animals, people, and creatures never before seen. When the first explorers reached Tassert, they expected to see traces of nomadic tribes, but what they discovered shocked even archaeologists with decades of experience. On the walls of canyons and caves were scenes dating back at least 10,000 years. Enormous giraffes, elephants, hippos, and crocodiles, all in the center of the Sahara where today dead sand reigns. These images showed that the desert was once green, filled with rivers and lakes. But among the familiar figures were others, creatures with elongated heads, no mouth, and hands ending not in fingers, but in long rays. The people depicted nearby were kneeling before them. One of the most famous compositions is called The Floating Men. It depicts dozens of human figures, seemingly floating in the air, surrounded by circles reminiscent of waves. But in this area, there is not, and never has been, water deep enough for swimming. Some scholars have suggested that this depicts a ritual, others that the scene symbolizes the journey of souls. But the local Berbers say otherwise. These are those who came from the sky. In their language, the word Tassareg means the place where the stone speaks. They believe the drawings are not art, but a message left by the white gods who descended in ancient times. Among the images are some particularly strange ones, figures in round helmets, connected by lines drawn from the sky. Their bodies are painted translucently, as if the artist were trying to convey that they are not made of flesh. On one wall, a large disc can be seen, with a beam extending from it toward the ground, surrounded by people standing with their hands raised. These drawings are too detailed to be a coincidence. Geologists have verified the age of the paint. It's over 8,000 years old, yet the pigment is still vibrant, as if it were applied yesterday. Its composition is unique, a mixture of iron oxide, manganese, and rare minerals not found nearby. When archaeologists began systematically photographing and digitizing the images, they noticed that the arrangement of some figures mimicked the starry sky. The constellation Orion, a common figure in ancient cultures, was particularly prominent. The drawings appear to be more than just random. They are aligned northeast to southwest, aligning with the sun's rise on the vernal equinox. This suggests that those who created Tassert had an understanding of celestial mechanics. But the main mystery isn't the images, but the energy of the place itself. People who have visited report a strange feeling of pressure, as if the air is becoming denser. Compasses go crazy, the needles spin without reason, and the metal sometimes heats up, even though the air temperature remains unchanged. Scientists have recorded a weak electromagnetic field emanating from the soil, but its source is unknown. The soil composition is identical to that of the surrounding regions. One theory is that beneath the Tassert Plateau lies a huge metal plate or anomaly of magmatic origin, creating a field similar to those recorded above meteorite craters. Berber elders claim that deep within the plateau there really is a stone dome, covering the entrance to an underground chamber. No one has ever entered it because this place does not belong to humans. It is believed that the Eye of Heaven, a crystal used by the ancients to listen to the stars, is kept beneath Tassert. Sometimes at night, luminous balls are seen above the plateau, moving silently and disappearing into the rocks. Scientists attribute this to a rare atmospheric phenomenon, but eyewitness accounts have been repeated for decades. During a 20th century expedition, a group of explorers spent the night there. They claimed to hear a low hum in the desert silence, like a distant choir emanating directly from the earth. In the morning, their instruments detected strong magnetic fluctuations, and clear traces of circles remained in the sand as if the grains had been cauterized from the inside. Later photographs showed that one of these circles matched the diameter of the central drawing of the floating men. The Tassert Plateau remains one of the most mysterious places in Africa. It's a place where ancient art becomes a document, and stone becomes a chronicle. Each image conveys an awareness of something the people of that time simply could not have known. Some speak of ancient astronauts, others of shamans who achieved a state allowing them to see other worlds. But the fact remains, 8,000 years ago, in the heart of the Sahara, people painted scenes that still challenge science's limits. As the sun sets, the Tassert stones turn gold and red, and the wind stirs dust, causing the designs to shimmer. And in those moments, it seems as if the ancient artists are still there, watching from beyond the horizon where the sand meets the sky. The desert is silent, but in this stillness one can sense the breath of time, a reminder that even the driest lands can retain traces of humanity's stellar origins. Mono Lake, California. In eastern California, amid arid mountains and lifeless plains, lies a lake that seems like a vision from another planet. Mono Lake is an ancient body of water, over 700,000 years old, one of the oldest lakes on Earth. Its surface shimmers with a silvery light, as if reflecting the sky, which seems especially close here. But behind this beauty lies a world of chemistry, silence, and strange creatures that have survived against the laws of nature. Mono Lake's waters are undrinkable. They're saturated with alkali, salts, and boron. There are no fish or plants, yet life still exists. Millions of tiny creatures, brine shrimp and microscopic algae, populate the lake's depths, coloring it emerald and blood red depending on the season. This gives Mono Lake's surface an otherworldly appearance. The colors shimmer, and in the heat, fog rises above, reflecting the sun, turning the horizon into a liquid mirror. But most striking of all are the stone towers jutting straight out of the water. They're called tuffs, calcareous formations that form beneath the surface when calcium-rich hot springs met soda water. Over hundreds of thousands of years, entire stone cities arose beneath the surface. Columns, vaults, and arches, like the ruins of an ancient civilization steeped in salt slumber. When the water level receded, these towers rose above the surface, and Mono Lake became a place where the past peers out from the depths. The local Paiute Indians believed that these towers were inhabited by water spirits, guarding the gateway between worlds. They said that at night, the towers glowed from within, and those who came too close heard a singing sound resembling a human voice. Modern tourists often claim the same. On windless nights, the lake does indeed emit sounds, low vibrations as if someone were softly playing glass strings. Scientists attribute this to fluctuations in pressure and temperature, but the feeling of a living place remains. Mono Lake has always been shrouded in mystery. Its chemical composition is unusual, its alkalinity is higher than anywhere else in the world, and its water density is so high that even heavy objects float. In some deep areas, the water forms layers that don't mix. One layer is cold and clear, the other warm and rich in minerals. If you place your hand there, you can feel the boundary between them, as if passing through an invisible curtain. But even more astonishing is the fact that beneath the water's surface lie life forms found nowhere else on the planet. Microorganisms found here can survive without oxygen, feeding only on sulfur and arsenic. When scientists discovered this phenomenon, they dubbed the microorganisms living messengers of prehistoric Earth. They are witnesses to a time when the planet's atmosphere was not yet breathable. Some believe that life on Earth began precisely under these conditions, meaning Mono Lake holds not only the past, but also the answer to the question of our origins. In the 1970s, the water level began to drop sharply due to the diversion of rivers for Los Angeles. The lake began to shrink, revealing more and more tuff towers. For the first time, people saw entire underwater valleys, where the rock formed spirals and paths. When researchers descended into the valleys, compasses began to behave strangely, and magnetometers recorded vibrations that shouldn't be present in limestone. Some geologists suggested that an ancient crater lay beneath the lake, possibly connected to the nearby Monolin volcano. Paiute legends say the lake was formed from the tears of a woman who lost her children, who were taken by the sky. These children, according to legend, became the stars, and she became the water, reflecting their light. So, when you look at Mono Lake at night, it seems as if the stars have fallen into the water and can't get back out. On those rare nights when the moon is full, its light reflects off the salt towers, causing them to glow like the bones of the ancient world. Some researchers argue that the structure of the tuff formations is too complex to be entirely natural. They form even rows, sometimes converging into geometric patterns. Whether this is a coincidence or whether ancient humans once truly interfered with this natural process is unknown. But Monor, like most great mysteries, offers no definitive answers. Today the lake is protected by law, but its appearance is still changing. The water is gradually returning, but with it comes the sense that a power undetectable by instruments lurks here. Standing by the shore, the wind carrying the salty scent and the cries of seagulls, it seems as if this landscape is not just a part of the earth, but a mirror of the planet itself, reflecting its ancient, infinitely vibrant soul. Imano Lake is more than just a natural phenomenon. It's a living chronicle of time, where stone, water, and light merge into a single breath. It reminds us that even in the most lifeless places, life finds form, albeit one that humans are not always able to recognize. And perhaps it is here, among the salt towers, that the earth whispers to us of its origins, of that deep memory that keeps it alive far longer than all our civilizations. Ubar City, Oman, in the heart of the Arabian desert, the Rub al-Khali, where the wind carries sand in endless waves, lies a place long spoken of only in legend. It was called the Atlantis of the Sands, a city that vanished overnight, cursed and swallowed by the desert. Its name is Ubar. Ancient manuscripts and the maps of medieval geographers mentioned it as a thriving oasis, rich in incense, trade, and architectural wonders. But no one knew exactly where it was, until satellite images from the late 20th century revealed road-like lines beneath the sand, converging at a single point. And at that point, archaeologists discovered ruins that changed our understanding of ancient Arabia. When the first expeditions arrived at the site, they were met with a strange sight. Fragments of columns, parts of walls, traces of massive towers, and deep stone-lined wells jutted out of the sand. All of this was buried tens of meters deep, as if the city had truly vanished instantly, pulled down. Radiocarbon dating revealed that the settlement existed approximately 5,000 years ago, at a time when Mesopotamian civilizations were just beginning. But the level of engineering at Ubar proved far superior to expectations. A water supply system was discovered beneath the sand, a network of tunnels and interconnected cisterns. Some of them went so deep that even modern pumps couldn't reach the bottom. There was no longer any water there, but the walls were coated with a glittering layer of minerals, as if they had been holding on to the moisture for centuries. This meant that Ubar once stood on the site of a huge underground spring, perhaps the last oasis before the sea of sand. Legends say the city was built by the descendants of the Ad, an ancient people blessed by God with wealth and power. They traded incense and precious stones, and their caravans crossed the entire Arabian Peninsula. But over time, the inhabitants grew arrogant and began to consider themselves equal to the gods. Then, according to legend, the earth beneath the city shook, and the sand swallowed everything: people, towers, wells, even the very road leading to it. Only the wind remained, which to this day carries a soft whistle over the Rub al-Khali, like distant voices. When the researchers cleared the first walls, they discovered traces of a fire. The stones were charred from the inside, as if something had exploded underground. Geologists attributed this to a cave-in and the ignition of natural gas, but locals are convinced it was the result of divine fire. Some believe Ubar didn't perish, but fell into another world, and that's why no expedition has ever found it in its entirety. The city's location proved most mysterious. All the roads discovered beneath the sands pointed in a strictly uniform direction, to the southeast, where, according to ancient maps, the incense route began. These caravan routes leading to the coast could have been built long before Ubar. This means the city stood at the crossroads of the planet's most ancient trade routes. But then, why did it vanish without a trace while other cities continued to thrive? Satellite images revealed enormous voids beneath the sand layer. One hypothesis is that a gigantic underground cavern, formed by the dissolution of salt rocks, existed beneath Ubar. When the vaults collapsed, the city sank inside. However, other data contradicts this theory. Near the ruins, instruments recorded a weak magnetic field and abnormal temperature changes. At night, the sand in the excavation area remains warm, although it cools quickly around it. Local Bedouin call this the breath of the city. Many archaeologists admit that the site seems protected. Any attempt to dig deeper is fraught with unpredictable events. Equipment breaks down, drilling rigs overheat, and sand begins to crumble faster than it can be removed. One engineer said, "The desert doesn't want Ubar returned to the world." However, what has already been discovered is astonishing. On one of the wall fragments, symbols resembling writing, but not belonging to any known alphabet, were carved. They resemble swirls and intersecting spirals, as if conveying movement rather than sound. When archaeologists illuminated them with infrared light, the lines began to glow with a soft golden hue. Scientists hypothesized that the paint contained rare minerals, but were unable to explain how it could have survived for 5,000 years. Since then, the site has attracted not only researchers, but also pilgrims. People come to the ruins to touch the stones, believing they contain the energy of the ancient city. Some claim to have seen a faint glow over the sand at night, as if a fire were burning underground. Others have heard a hum, steady, quiet, like a pulse. Today, Ubar has been partially excavated, but most of it remains hidden beneath the dunes. The desert guards it like a secret, and perhaps always will, because, as the Bedouins say, the sand remembers only those who know how to listen. And when the setting sun paints the dunes red, it seems as if somewhere beneath the surface the towers still stand, glittering with incense and stone, and the shadows of their inhabitants glide across the sand, unaware that the world around them is long gone. Ubar is more than just a legend. It is a reminder that cities may vanish, but their memory lingers in the earth itself, like a breath that cannot be seen but can be felt if you stand still and listen to the silence of the desert. Pyramids of Mauritania, Sahara. In the southwest Sahara, in its most silent part, where the sand stretches to the horizon and the air seems scorched by the sun, rise mysterious hills that, from above, appear too perfect to be random. Their peaks form precise triangles, and their sides are oriented toward the cardinal directions. At first glance, they appear to be mere sand mounds, but when researchers began to analyze their structure, it turned out that beneath the layers of sand lay ancient stone structures that bear an uncanny resemblance to pyramids. This place is called the Mauritania Pyramid Field. Officially, they are natural formations, the result of wind erosion. But even satellite images show that each mountain has smooth edges and peaks converging at a single point. The most striking thing is the arrangement of these pyramids. They form a geometric pattern almost identical to that seen on the Giza Plateau in Egypt, only on a different scale. The distance between the pyramids here is 10 times greater. When the first expeditions reached Mauritania, they discovered fragments of basalt and quartzite slabs buried under the sand. These materials are not found nearby, meaning they must have been transported from afar. Some slabs weighed over 30 tons. Several bore traces of polishing, lines intersecting at right angles, and the remains of carving-like symbols. All of this indicated the artificial origin of the structures. Inside one of the pyramids, they were able to enter a small chamber filled with sand and rubble. Traces of drawings remained on the walls, wavy lines reminiscent of water, and figures with circles around their heads. Radiocarbon dating of the samples showed that the structure may be over 10,000 years old, long before the emergence of the known civilizations of North Africa. Scientists immediately divided into two camps. Skeptics claimed it was the result of wind processes and optical illusions, while proponents of alternative theories asserted that these were traces of an ancient empire that existed long before Egypt, possibly Atlantis, as described by Plato and Herodotus. After all, according to legend, these places were the location of the Land of Gold, where caravans from Europe and the Middle East flocked. Archaeologists examining the internal structure noted a striking coincidence. The tilt angles of the pyramids match the angle of the Egyptian Great Pyramid of Giza, 31 degrees. This coincidence cannot be explained by chance. Moreover, magnetic measurements revealed weak anomalies underground, as if there were hidden voids within. According to one hypothesis, these are buried stone chambers connected by passages, but access to them is impossible. The sand collapses instantly. Locals, descendants of the Berbers, told legends about black mountains where the sun lives. They claim that light abides within these mountains, and that at night, when the air grows cold, a faint glow, like distant lights, can be seen from the sand. Elders believe that a city of light sleeps underground, built by gods who will one day return. Tourists who spent the night nearby reported strange sounds, a quiet hum like the breath of the wind, and a vibration felt beneath their feet. Some researchers have noted the region's geography. Not far from these structures is the famous Eye of the Sahara, a gigantic ring-shaped formation over 40 kilometers in diameter. It is visible from space and is thought to be an erosion crater, but its shape is too perfect to be entirely natural. It is theorized that the pyramids in the Eye of the Sahara may have been a single architectural complex, built by a civilization whose knowledge of geometry and astronomy was lost after a catastrophe. Geologists note that local magnetic surges frequently occur in the area around the pyramids, especially after sunset. These anomalies are not explained by iron ore or volcanic activity. Some suggest quartz deposits beneath the sand, capable of accumulating and releasing energy, creating a pulsating effect. But local legends also suggest another explanation. They say the sands of Mauritania are living. They move because the heart of the ancient world beats beneath them. Interestingly, in the 21st century, researchers studying satellite maps discovered another detail. If you connect the lines passing through the tops of all the pyramids, you get a figure that aligns with the outlines of the constellation Leo, just as the Egyptian pyramids correspond to Orion. This gave rise to a new hypothesis. Ancient civilizations may have built their structures within a single celestial coordinate system, reflecting the sky on Earth. Today, scientists are in no rush to draw conclusions. Sand continues to conceal much of the mystery, and excavations in this climate are nearly impossible. But even cursory research has already revealed that the Sahara wasn't always dead. Rivers once flowed here, forests grew, and cities stood. Perhaps this is where a civilization was born, which later sank beneath the sand, leaving behind stone traces. A reminder that time can erase much, but not everything. The pyramids of Mauritania stand like mute sentinels of the ancient world. Their silence is tense, as if they're waiting for someone to hear the desert's voice again. And perhaps, when the wind reveals their peaks again, humanity will discover that it was here, in the sands, that a history we can only guess at began. 25 ancient mysteries, 25 reminders that humanity knows only a small part of its history. Beneath the sand, ice, and water, cities, energies, and forms that defy explanation still slumber. They breathe time, awaiting those who once again learn to listen to the earth, not with instruments, but with their hearts.